Chapter 2020. Senior Brother Lu Yun. Why are you looking for me? Duan Ling Tian asked curiously as he soared into the air. He hovered near Lu Yun in the air. At the same time, he noticed that Lu Yun, who had come in a hurry, had a serious expression on his face. For a moment, he vaguely realized that Lu Yun must have come to find him for something important. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian's expression tensed up slightly. Junior Brother Ling Tian, I heard you slapped Wen Yin a few times in public? Lu Yun asked solemnly as he looked at Duan Ling Tian.
Yes.
Duan Ling Tian nodded. His tensed expression gradually relaxed when he heard Lu Yun's question. Senior Brother Lu Yun, is this the reason you're looking for me? As soon as Duan Ling Tian finished speaking, his expression returned to normal. It was as though Wen Yan's matter was not enough to cause a stir in his heart. That was indeed the case. Junior Brother Ling Tian, Wen Yin is not just a true disciple. When Lu Yun saw Duan Ling Tian's nonchalant expression, he realized he was being a little too anxious. He smiled wryly and said, Her master is a golden flame elder of the Zoroastrianism. He's also the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, one of the 4 symbol sanctums. The sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum? Duan Ling Tian was surprised when he heard Lu Yun's words. However, that was all. He was not fearful because he knew Wen Yan's master was the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. After recovering from his shock, Duan Ling Tian's expression returned to normal. Senior Brother Lu Yun, you're here to tell me that Wen Yin is the direct disciple of the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum? Duan Ling Tian asked as he looked at Lu Yun. Lu Yun was speechless when he saw Duan Ling Tian acting as though nothing had happened. That's the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. He's also a golden flame elder of the Zoroastrianism. Why do I feel like you're not worried at all? Why should I be worried? Don't tell me that he would come to kill me just because I slapped Wen Yin a few times? When Duan Ling Tian opened his mouth to reply to Lu Yun, his expression was as calm as ever, without the slightest ripple. In fact, when he blocked Wen Yan's way and slapped her, he had already guessed that Wen Yin might have a master with a high status in Zoroastrianism. After all, no matter what, Wen Yin was still a true disciple who was ranked 9th on the true ranking. She must have been taken in as a direct disciple by the higher-ups of the Zoroastrianism. Therefore, when he heard from Lu Yun that Wen Yan's master was a golden flame elder, he was not afraid at all. Moreover, he was shocked not because Wen Yan's master was a golden flame elder, but because Wen Yan's master was the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, one of the 4 symbol sanctums. When Lu Yun heard Duan Ling Tian's words, he opened his mouth, but he did not know what to say in the end. He was completely speechless. Senior Brother Lu Yun, I know you're worried about my safety, but Wen Yan's master is a golden flame elder after all. I don't think he would go to the extent of targeting me over such a small matter. When Duan Ling Tian realized Lu Yun had come with good intentions, he comforted Lu Yun in a timely manner. Junior Brother Ling Tian, Wen Yan's master, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, might not personally target you over this matter, but he has another direct disciple. The sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum only has 2 direct disciples. Due to this reason, his direct disciple treats Wen Yin very well. He treats her like she's his biological sister. When Lu Yun mentioned the first direct disciple of the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, his expression turned grave. If he finds out what you did to Wen Yin, he definitely won't let this matter rest. When Lu Yun reached the end of his sentence, he looked at Duan Ling Tian worriedly. Oh. Duan Ling Tian, who had a nonchalant expression on his face, raised a brow when he heard Lu Yun's words. He asked, How's the strength of the sanctum leader's first direct disciple? It was just as Lu Yun had said. Perhaps, Wen Yan's master would not personally target him over such a small matter. However, Wen Yan's senior brother would not have so many concerns. For this reason, Duan Ling Tian's heart skipped a beat when he learned Wen Yin had a senior brother. He wanted to know how strong Wen Yan's senior brother was. If Wen Yan's senior brother was stronger than him, he would have to be more careful in the future. After all, he did not want to be beaten up for no reason. Even if he was confident he would be able to avenge Wen Yan's senior brother in the future. Wen Yan's senior brother is also a true disciple. He's ranked 2nd on the true ranking. His cultivation base has already broken through to the third form of the Saint Celestial stage a few years ago. For this reason, he's very strong. Lu Yun's expression turned even more solemn when he spoke. It was as though Wen Yan's senior brother was a ferocious beast. Second on the true ranking, third form of the Saint Celestial stage. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes when he heard Lu Yun's words. He was confident he could kill a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage if he exhausted all his Sun Saint energy that had been boosted by the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, and wielded the Jasper Celestial Sword with all his might. However, in Zoroastrianism, unless he entered the Palace of Death and signed a death pact, he did not dare to kill Wen Yan's senior brother. If he killed Wen Yan's senior brother, he would not be able to escape punishment from the Zoroastrianism's rules. Wen Yan's senior brother was not like Yuan Hong, the grand disciple of the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder Lian, whom he had killed in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. As a true disciple who was ranked second on the true ranking, Wen Yan's senior brother's innate talent must be very high as well. Moreover, he was the great direct disciple of the Sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. If Duan Lingtian violated the Zoroastrianism's rules and killed him, even if Duan Lingtian revealed his blue innate spiritual root and showed his worth, the Zoroastrianism's enforcement hall would not go easy on him. After all, Wen Yan's senior brother was not someone Yuan Hong could compare to. If he did not kill Wen Yan's senior brother, who was at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, would be able to see him wielding the Jasper Celestial Sword with all his might. At that time, the Jasper Celestial Sword would be exposed and many powerhouses would covet it. That was not something he wanted to see. Even if Wen Yan's senior brother is willing to enter the Palace of Death with me and sign a death pact, I won't be able to use the Jasper Celestial Sword so easily. Elder Nyezue, the custodian of the Palace of Death, won't be as careless as he was previously and allow me to block his view at a critical moment. Duan Lingtian thought about many things at this moment. In the end, he came to a conclusion. He could only endure when faced with Wen Yan's senior brother. Even if he was tortured, he could only endure. When Lu Yun saw the hint of dread on Duan Lingtian's face, naturally, he could tell Duan Lingtian was afraid of Wen Yan's senior brother. He hurriedly said, "Junior brother Lingtian, as long as you stay in your residence, Wen Yan's senior brother won't be able to do anything to you. He won't dare to barge into your residence. Apart from that, I'll go to Wen Yan's senior brother's residence to find out what's going on. If he's not in closed-door cultivation or has not left the residence, don't leave your residence for the time being. Wait until you have the confidence to defeat him, then you can leave your residence." After Lu Yun finished speaking, he did not wait for Duan Lingtian's reply before he left in a flash, leaving Duan Lingtian standing alone in the air. Duan Lingtian felt warmth in his heart when he saw this. At the same time, he entered the formation that enveloped his residence. As long as he was in the formation, Wen Yan's senior brother would not be able to do anything to him even if he came. This feeling is really annoying. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. Duan Lingtian muttered with a sigh as his eyes flashed with a fierce light. If Wen Yan's senior brother came looking for him, he would have no choice but to hide temporarily unless he wanted to be tortured. This was because he could not use the Jasper Celestial Sword to deal with Wen Yan's senior brother. I hope that senior brother of Wen Yan is still in closed-door cultivation or has gone out. Otherwise, I can only wait for my cultivation to improve a little before I can suppress him like how I suppressed Wen Yan with the Jasper Celestial Sword and make him lose all thoughts of standing up for her. Duan Lingtian knew this very well. His current strength was not enough to make him invisible to a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage when he wielded the Jasper Celestial Sword. Walao. If it's a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, how high must my cultivation base be so that he won't be able to detect the Jasper Celestial Sword when I'm wielding it with all my might? Duan Lingtian asked Walao, who was in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. If you want to prevent an ordinary powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage from detecting the Jasper Celestial Sword when you're wielding it with all your might, you'll have to raise your cultivation base to the peak of the exemplary saint stage at least, Hualao replied. Hualao had been following Duan Lingtian all this while. Coupled with the fact that he had extended his divine consciousness to probe the surroundings, He had a certain understanding of the cultivators in the Dao Martial Saint land. Faced with Duan Ling Tian's question, he immediately answered it. An ordinary powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage? Duan Ling Tian could not help but frown when he heard Elder Hua's words. Elder Hua, do you mean I might not be able to hide the Jasper Celestial Sword from those powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, even if my cultivation base is at the peak of the exemplary Saint stage?
Yes.
Hua Lao replied before he continued to say, That's right. In this world, after a cultivator's cultivation base has broken through to the Saint Celestial stage, apart from becoming stronger with each transformation, there's a huge difference between each transformation. Chapter 2021 Quintessential Saint Stage. Duan Lingtian's eyes widened immediately when he heard Hua Lao's words. Currently, Duan Lingtian's cultivation base had only broken through to the early exemplary saint stage. Even with his high innate talent and the help of the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda, it would still take some time for him to break through to the quintessential saint stage. Moreover, he would encounter many bottlenecks if he wanted to break through to the next stage. Hua Lao, are you sure you're not mistaken? Duan Lingtian asked skeptically after he took a deep breath. I'm sure. Hua Lao's reply was firm. Not only is the saint origin of powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage much stronger than powerhouses at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage, most importantly, I discovered that the eyes of powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage in this world are completely different from powerhouses at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage. It's as though their eyes have undergone a transformation. Ever since Duan Lingtian came to Zoroastrianism, he had seen many powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage. Naturally, those powerhouses were not disciples of Zoroastrianism. They were all elders of Zoroastrianism. During this time, Hua Lao discovered some clues from the elders of Zoroastrianism. Among them, he discovered that powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage had undergone a transformation in their eyes compared to powerhouses at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage. Powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage have undergone a transformation in their eyes? Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Hua Lao's words. He speculated. It's said that from the second form of the Saint Celestial stage onward, each form of the 9 forms of the Saint Celestial stage has an increase in one saint origin. It's said that the increase in saint origin only affects a part of one's strength. The most important thing is the improvement in other aspects. Could it be that the improvement in other aspects at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage has something to do with the eyes? It can transform one's eyes? The more Duan Lingtian thought about it, the more certain he became. Let's wait for senior brother Lu Yun to return and ask him. Duan Lingtian did not think too much about it. He decided to ask Lu Yun about the third form of the Saint Celestial stage when he returned. Time passed quietly. About an hour later, Lu Yun's figure came from afar and appeared in front of Duan Lingtian, causing Duan Lingtian's eyes to brighten. He immediately went up to greet him. Senior brother Lu Yun, how is it? Duan Lingtian looked at Lu Yun expectantly as he asked straightforwardly. Currently, he did not dare to use the Jasper Celestial Sword in front of Wen Yan's senior brother. Therefore, he was not a match for him. If the other party hadn't gone out and hadn't gone into seclusion, he would have definitely come knocking on his door very soon. At that time, he could only hide in his own residence. But if he left his residence, he would definitely be ruthlessly beaten up by Wen Yan's senior brother. With Wen Yan's hatred towards him, Wen Yan's senior apprentice brother would definitely not show mercy. At that time, he would definitely be severely injured. Since he was severely injured, he would need to recuperate. Due to this reason, he would not be able to serve in the Saint Land Enforcement Hall for the time being. If he could not serve in the Saint Land Enforcement Hall, he would not have the chance to seek her and their daughter. Duan Lingtian could not accept this. At this moment, he wished he could grow a pair of wings and fly to the enforcement hall. He could not accept that he would not have the chance to seek her and their daughter for the time being. Junior brother Lingtian, you're quite lucky. Buhong just so happened to have left for a long time. He won't be back for the time being. Lu Yun answered Duan Lingtian's question in a timely manner. Buhong was, naturally, Wen Yan's senior brother. He was the true disciple who was ranked second on the true ranking. His cultivation base was at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage. He left for a long time? Duan Lingtian was, naturally, overjoyed when he heard this news. At the same time, he sighed in relief inwardly. If this was the case, it would not affect him going to the Fire Remuneration Palace to serve in the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. Junior brother Ling Tian, although Bu Hong has left for a long time and won't be back for the time being, it's best if you don't go out for the time being so you can improve your cultivation base, Lu Yun said to Duan Lingtian solemnly. Although you only have a yellow innate spiritual root, as long as you work hard, there's still a chance for you to break through to the quintessential saint stage. Once you break through to the quintessential saint stage, it won't be impossible for you to defeat Bu Hong with your various techniques, Lu Yun said in one breath. Based on his words, it was obvious he had confidence in Duan Lingtian. In his opinion, Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root was only a yellow innate spiritual root that was not worth mentioning. Lu Yun thought so because of the strength Duan Lingtian had displayed up until now. Duan Lingtian's strength was so strong that Lu Yun respected him greatly. Duan Lingtian had defeated Wen Yin, who was ranked 9th on the true ranking in just one move. When Lu Yun first learned about this, he was only worried Duan Lingtian had indirectly offended Wen Yan's senior brother, Bu Hong. He was not surprised that Duan Lingtian had defeated Wen Yin. Previously, when Duan Lingtian had cast his sword technique in the Palace of Death, Lu Yun realized that Duan Lingtian was not weak at all. Duan Lingtian's strength could be ranked in the upper echelons of powerhouses at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Wen Yin, who was ranked in the upper echelons of the Saint Celestial stage, could not compare to him at all. For this reason, Lu Yun had concluded that Duan Lingtian was not weak at all. With Duan Lingtian's strength, it was entirely possible for him to be ranked in the top 5 of the true ranking. For this reason, he was not surprised that Duan Lingtian easily defeated Wen Yin. He only felt that it was normal. Yellow innate spiritual root? Duan Lingtian shook his head inwardly when he heard Lu Yun's words. In his opinion, the yellow innate spiritual root was a thing of the past. Currently, his innate spiritual root had transformed into a blue innate spiritual root. With the help of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, his current cultivation speed was comparable to some monstrous geniuses with indigo innate spiritual roots. Naturally, Lu Yun was unaware of all this. In Lu Yun's opinion, Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root, just like the rumors had said. Senior brother Lu Yun. Duan Lingtian suddenly recalled something. He looked at Lu Yun and asked, the first form of the Saint Celestial stage is also called the Saint Origin form. Do you know what the third form of the Saint Celestial stage is called? The third form of the Saint Celestial stage is also called the Spiritual Eyes form. Although Lu Yun did not know why Duan Lingtian would ask such a question, he still answered in a timely manner. Spiritual Eyes form? Duan Lingtian's eyes widened when he heard Lu Yun's words. He realized his earlier guess was correct. The third form of the Saint Celestial stage was indeed related to the eyes. It was no wonder Hualao said the eyes of those at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage would undergo a huge transformation compared to those at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage. Senior brother Lu Yun. The first form of the Saint Celestial stage is called the Saint Origin form because when one breaks through to the Saint Celestial stage, the Saint energy in one's body would transform into Saint Origin. That's why it's called the Saint Origin form. Do you know why the third form of the Saint Celestial stage is called the Spiritual Eyes form? Duan Lingtian continued to ask.
Yes.
Although Lu Yun did not know why Duan Lingtian was so insistent on asking this question, he still answered in a timely manner. The third form of the Saint Celestial stage is called the Spiritual Eyes form because those at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage have to temper their eyes into spiritual eyes to successfully break through to the third form of the Saint Celestial stage. For this reason, those at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage and above have extraordinary eyes. It's said that when one's spiritual eyes form, one's eyesight would improve by several folds. Lu Yun paused as though he had recalled something. He looked at Duan Lingtian and said, it's not an exaggeration to say that if my eyes are tempered into spiritual eyes, I'll definitely be able to see the sword technique you used to kill Yang Wan, junior brother Lingtian. Lu Yun still could not forget the sword technique Duan Lingtian used to kill Yangwan. So that's how it is. Duan Lingtian realized Hua Lao was not lying when he heard Lu Yun's words. Those at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage possessed extraordinary spiritual eyes and extraordinary eyesight. Perhaps he would only be able to conceal the Jasper Celestial Sword from those at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage after his cultivation base had broken through to the quintessential Saint stage. Junior brother Ling Tian, why are you asking this? Lu Yun asked curiously. I'm just asking, Duan Lingtian replied with a smile. However, his eyes flashed brightly. Lu Yun did not notice the flash of light in his eyes. Junior brother Ling Tian. Lu Yun seemed to have recalled something as he looked at Duan Lingtian and asked, I heard you've already gone to the Fire Remuneration Palace to ask about the recruitment of true disciples to be on duty in the Enforcement Hall. Do you still plan to be on duty in the Enforcement Hall? Of course. Duan Lingtian nodded confidently. Naturally, he had to go to the Enforcement Hall since his wife and daughter were imprisoned there. If he wanted to rescue them, he would have to understand the situation in the Enforcement Hall first before he acted. Junior brother Ling Tian, do you know the Saint girl? As soon as Duan Ling Tian nodded, Lu Yun suddenly said, You're right. Duan Ling Tian narrowed his eyes when he heard Lu Yun's words. He did not expect Lu Yun would suddenly ask him this question. However, as soon as Duan Ling Tian's eyes widened, he regained his composure and asked nonchalantly, Senior brother Lu Yun, why would you ask such a question? It's nothing. I just think it's a coincidence. Although Duan Lingtian's eyes only widened for a moment, Lu Yun still saw it. This made Lu Yun even more convinced of his guess. Duan Lingtian knew the saint girl of Zoroastrianism. Coincidence? How so? Duan Lingtian asked, pretending to be confused. Junior brother Lingtian, do you really want to know? Chapter 2022. Senior brother Lu Yun, please speak. Seeing Lu Yun's deep gaze, Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat, but on the surface, he continued to act dumb. I remember. You've mentioned the saintess of Zoroastrianism many times in front of me. After that, you even said that you wanted to go to the Law Enforcement Hall. A wisp of wisdom flashed across Lu Yun's eyes as he said unhurriedly, Then, you humiliated Wen Yin for no reason. I remember. I told you before that the Holy Maiden, her daughter, and even senior sister Ru Yin were imprisoned in the Law Enforcement Hall because of Wen Yan's report. Now that you're faced with the threat from Wen Yan's senior brother, Bu Hong, instead of going into closed-door cultivation, you still insist on going to the Enforcement Hall. This shows that there must be something you care about in the Enforcement Hall. Or perhaps, there is someone you care about. Lu Yun's words connected all the clues that Duan Lingtian had exposed. Hearing Lu Yun's words, Duan Lingtian's heart was in turmoil. He didn't expect Lu Yun's thoughts to be so meticulous. Lu Yun had guessed most of his matters. Maybe I know senior marshal sister Ru Yin and want to fight for justice for her? Duan Lingtian suppressed the shock in his heart and asked without changing his expression. Gan Ru Yin, as the most outstanding female disciple of Zoroastrianism, was also the dream lover of all the male disciples of Zoroastrianism. It was normal for someone to stand up for her. Junior brother Ling Tian, if you wanted to fight for justice for senior sister Ru Yin, you wouldn't have mentioned the saintess of Zoroastrianism after asking about the Law Enforcement Hall. Lu Yun continued to say, Moreover, I still remember when I mentioned senior sister Ru Yin and said she was on the Supreme Saint ranking, you were shocked as well. If you wanted to fight for justice for senior sister Ru Yin, how could you not know she's on the Supreme Saint ranking? Therefore, I'm certain junior brother Ling Tian knows the saint girl and has a close relationship with her. I wonder if I'm right? Lu Yun's wise eyes stared at Duan Lingtian when he reached the end of his sentence, as though he could see through everything. Duan Lingtian remained silent in the face of Lu Yun's question. However, when he looked at Lu Yun, his eyes were filled with cold killing intent. The killing intent was very obvious. Lu Yun also sensed it at the first moment. He was so frightened that his expression changed slightly. Junior brother Ling Tian, Duan Lingtian said, Don't worry. I won't tell anyone about this. Even in front of Brother Mu, I won't mention it. After taking a deep breath, Lu Yun hurriedly expressed his stance. Without waiting for Duan Lingtian's reply, Lu Yun pricked his finger and used his blood as a medium to swear on the lightning penalty oath. He swore he would not tell anyone about what he had just said and would not betray Duan Lingtian. Otherwise, he would be killed by the lightning penalty. Boom, 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 boom. After Lu Yun swore on the lightning penalty oath, 9 claps of thunder sounded from the sky, proving Lu Yun's oath. When Duan Lingtian saw Lu Yun swearing on the lightning penalty oath without any hesitation, the killing intent in the depths of his eyes vanished immediately. An awkward and guilty expression appeared on his stiff face. However, Lu Yun did not take Duan Lingtian's killing intent to heart. In fact, he took the initiative to change the topic. Junior brother Lingtian, now that I've sworn on the lightning penalty oath, can you tell me what's your relationship with the saint of Zoroastrianism? Senior brother Lu Yun, I'm very sorry for what happened just now. It was me who was too cautious to measure the heart of a gentleman. I've misjudged you, Duan Lingtian said apologetically. After he finished speaking, he continued to answer Lu Yun's question. She's my wife. Although Lu Yun had long guessed that the relationship between Duan Lingtian and the saint of Zoroastrianism was not simple, he did not expect it to be so complicated. The saint of Zoroastrianism was actually junior brother Lingtian's wife? In that case, the saint's daughter was junior brother Lingtian's daughter? Lu Yun could not help but reveal a horrified expression when he thought of this. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought this junior brother Lingtian in front of them was actually the husband of the saintess of the Zoroastrianism, and also the person whom all the higher-ups of the Zoroastrianism wished to find and kill. Junior brother Lingtian, give me some time to recover. Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Lu Yun couldn't calm down for a long time. After greeting Duan Lingtian, his expression changed again. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, Lu Yun's expression calmed down. Junior brother Lingtian, so, you came to our Zoroastrianism for the sake of this saintess? Taking a deep breath, Lu Yun looked at Duan Lingtian with a burning gaze and asked,
Yes.
Since Lu Yun had already sworn on the lightning penalty oath, Duan Lingtian did not plan to hide anything from him. He immediately nodded and said, I'm here to save my wife. Naturally, based on the current situation, my strength is not enough to save my wife. When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, his expression turned gloomy. Now, I only hope that when I'm on duty in the law enforcement hall, I can see my wife and my daughter that I've never met. I'll rescue them sooner or later. After a while, Duan Lingtian spoke again. His eyes shone brightly as a determined expression appeared on his face. Junior brother Lingtian. When Lu Yun heard Duan Lingtian's words, he could not help but sigh. It's not that I want to discourage you, but with your innate talent, I'm afraid you won't have the strength to save the saintess and her daughter even in the future. After all, you only have a yellow innate spiritual root. The fact that Lu Yun said this was enough to prove that he really treated Duan Lingtian as a friend. His words were, to a certain extent, a reminder to Duan Lingtian. With your innate talent, you won't be able to save the saintess and her daughter. Even if you have an indigo innate spiritual root instead of a yellow innate spiritual root, you might not be able to save the saintess before the sect leader of Zoroastrianism comes out of closed-door cultivation. Lu Yun smiled wryly. You should know that the hall master of the enforcement hall is someone whose strength is not inferior to the 2 vice sect leaders. Put aside the hall master of the enforcement hall, even the vice hall master under him has strength comparable to a golden flame elder. If you want to save the saintess from the enforcement hall, you'll have to be stronger than the hall master of the enforcement hall. Even if you have an indigo innate spiritual root, by the time you have that strength, Lord Sect Leader would have already come out of closed-door cultivation and made a judgment against the saintess. Lu Yun sighed after he finished speaking. He did not think Duan Lingtian would be able to save the saintess who was imprisoned in the enforcement hall. Senior brother Lu Yun, I understand what you're saying. Duan Lingtian sighed. Then, he looked at Lu Yun solemnly and asked, Senior brother Lu Yun, if your loved ones were imprisoned by the enforcement hall, and you know it's almost impossible for you to rescue them, would you just watch as they're sentenced to death and do nothing from the beginning until the end? Of course not. Lu Yun immediately shook his head. At the same time, he could understand how Duan Lingtian felt when he put himself in Duan Lingtian's shoes. If he was in Duan Lingtian's shoes, he would have done the same as well. Junior brother Lingtian. All of a sudden, Lu Yun seemed to have recalled something. He raised his hand, and a jade pendant appeared in his hand. A willow tree was carved on the front of the jade pendant. It looked very delicate. There were 2 words carved on the corner of the willow tree. The word Lu and the word Di. This is the jade pendant that the direct descendants of the Lu clan carry around. My name is written on the back of the jade pendant. Lu Yun turned the jade pendant around, and Duan Lingtian saw the word Yun carved on the back of the jade pendant. However, he did not know why Lu Yun took out the jade pendant at this time. Senior brother Lu Yun, your junior brother Lingtian. I know you want to go to the enforcement hall to see the saintess. However, as far as I know, the true disciples on duty in the enforcement hall have almost no chance of coming into contact with the people imprisoned in the enforcement hall. Lu Yun said bluntly. Lu Yun's words caused Duan Lingtian's expression to change immediately. If that was the case, did that mean he would not be able to meet Kerr? At the same time, Lu Yun continued to say, it just so happens that our Lu clan has a direct descendant who's on duty in the enforcement hall. He's a silver flame elder. When you arrive at the enforcement hall, you can bring my jade pendant to him and ask him to arrange a meeting between you and senior sister Ru Yin. Gone Ru Yin? Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Lu Yun's words. The person he wanted to meet was not Gone Ru Yin. He wanted to meet his wife and daughter. When Lu Yun saw Duan Lingtian's expression, he explained, Junior brother Lingtian, if you directly say you want to meet the saintess, even if the direct descendant of the Lu clan is willing to help, he won't be able to arrange a meeting between you and the saintess. After all, he's only a silver flame elder in the enforcement hall, not a vice hall master or hall master. In the enforcement hall, the saintess's identity is very special and sensitive. Let alone you. Even if a golden flame elder wants to meet the saintess, the few hall masters in the enforcement hall won't agree to it. Lu Yun continued to say, however, if you want to meet senior sister Ru Yin, the nature of the matter will be completely different. The direct descendant of the Lu clan will most likely be able to arrange a meeting for you. In other words, if you want to meet your wife and daughter, the prerequisite is that they have to be locked up with senior sister Ru Yin. Otherwise, even the direct descendant of the Lu clan won't be able to help you. Lu Yun sighed when he reached the end of his sentence. Duan Lingtian's expression changed again when he heard Lu Yun's words. He did not expect this at all. As it turned out, even if he was on duty in the enforcement hall and had the help of the Silver Flame Elder, he might not be able to meet Kerr. Thank you, Senior Brother Lu Yun. Chapter 2023. Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed brightly as he looked at the jade pendant in his hand. For the sake of meeting Kerr, for the sake of meeting his daughter whom he had never met, even if the chances were slim, he still wanted to give it a try. Junior Brother Lingtian, please be careful when you arrive at the enforcement hall. Don't expose your relationship with the saint. Otherwise, the few hall masters of the enforcement hall will kill you immediately. Lu Yun warned Duan Lingtian solemnly as he looked at him. Lu Yun knew very well. The reason the saint of Zoroastrianism was imprisoned in the enforcement hall was because she was no longer a saint. He could imagine how Duan Lingtian would die once the few hall masters of the enforcement hall found out that Duan Lingtian was the man who had destroyed the saint's purity. All right. Duan Lingtian knew Lu Yun meant well, so he nodded immediately. He had always been grateful to Lu Yun. Whether it was Lu Yun taking the initiative to swear on the lightning penalty oath or passing the jade pendant to him, he was very grateful. In the next few days, apart from comprehending his divine ability, Duan Lingtian also wanted to consolidate his cultivation base at the early exemplary saint stage. When the day arrived, Duan Lingtian, who had consolidated his cultivation base, immediately left his residence and flew in the direction of the Saint Island. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian moved at lightning speed like a bolt of lightning. Along the way, he encountered 3 true disciples who were traveling in a group. They happened to be in his path. When they saw Duan Lingtian moving at such a fast speed, they hastily avoided him as well. Bastard! Are you in a hurry to be reincarnated? One of the true disciples cursed with a dissatisfied expression. I think he's Duan Lingtian. The other true disciple narrowed his eyes in shock when he saw Duan Lingtian's silhouette disappearing into the distance. It's Duan Lingtian. I've seen his portrait. The last successor disciple nodded. Although they had only passed each other face to face, he had still clearly seen the other party's appearance. 10 days ago, Duan Lingtian had bashed up Wen Yin, who was ranked 9th on the true ranking, and he'd become famous for a period of time. Someone drew a vivid portrait of him and made many copies of it, which was widely circulated in the holy land of Zoroastrianism. Now, even those who had never seen Duan Lingtian in person before had seen Duan Lingtian in person and had deeply imprinted his appearance in their minds. They were afraid that they would offend the Duan Lingtian in the future if they didn't recognize him. After arriving at the Saint Land, Duan Lingtian had first killed the true disciple, Yang Wan, and then overpowered the true disciple, Wen Yin. Such strength was enough to make 99% of the Saint Land's disciples fear him. When the successor disciple who had called Duan Lingtian AB** starred heard his two companions' words, the displeasure on his face disappeared and was replaced by fear. Do you think he heard me calling him AB** starred? The successor disciple took a deep breath and looked at his two companions anxiously. When you were scolding him, he had already flown so far away. I don't think he heard you. One of the successor disciples replied. I think he must have heard you. Although he was quite far away from you, with his strength, don't tell me he doesn't even have that much hearing ability? The other successor disciple said. The successor disciple's words caused the successor disciple who had scolded Duan Lingtian to turn pale immediately. He muttered anxiously. It's obvious he had something urgent to attend to and was in a hurry. Will he come and settle the score with me after he's done? When the successor disciple recalled Duan Lingtian's strength, he panicked again. I don't think he'll hold it against you, Dado. The other two successor disciples reached a consensus in this regard. This caused the successor disciple who was panicking to heave a sigh of relief. In fact, Duan Lingtian would not take such a small matter to heart. Currently, all his thoughts were on the matter of going to the enforcement hall since it was related to whether he would be able to seek her and their daughter. After 10 days, Duan Lingtian came to the central square of the Saint Island again. As soon as he appeared, many Saint Land's disciples in the central square recognized him. It's Duan Lingtian. He's here again. I wonder who's going to be unlucky this time. Unlucky? Why do you say that? You don't know, right? Duan Lingtian has come to the central square twice. The first time was when he entered the Palace of Death with successor disciple Yang Wan and killed him. As for the second time, it was 10 days ago when he humiliated Wen Yin, who's ranked 9th on the true ranking of Zoroastrianism. That seems to be the case. However, Duan Lingtian's strength is really terrifying. It's said that he only has a yellow innate spiritual root. But he managed to defeat 2 successor disciples. Such a person has never appeared in the history of Zoroastrianism. Indeed, it has never happened before. It's said that senior sister Wen Yin has a blue innate spiritual root. Moreover, it's a dark blue innate spiritual root. When she grows stronger in the future, she'll most likely become a golden flame elder. Such a genius disciple with a bright future was actually defeated by a guy with a yellow innate spiritual root. It's unbelievable. It's indeed unbelievable. However, the truth is right in front of our eyes. We have no choice but to believe it. When Duan Lingtian arrived at the central square, he heard a group of Saint Land's disciples whispering among themselves. He was not surprised when he heard Wen Yin had a blue innate spiritual root. After all, Wen Yin was a successor disciple who was ranked 9th on the true ranking. In Zoroastrianism, not all Saint Land's elite disciples who had entered the Saint Celestial stage could become a successor disciple. In order to become a successor disciple, apart from one's cultivation base, there was also an age limit. Only those who had entered the Saint Celestial stage before a certain age could become a successor disciple. This was because successor disciples were the best among the younger generation in Zoroastrianism. Even a successor disciple would be removed from the list of successor disciples when he reached a certain age. Based on his strength at that time, he would either be a bronze flame elder or a silver flame elder in Zoroastrianism. In short, in Zoroastrianism, Successor disciple was synonymous with the younger generation. Since Wen Yin was a successor disciple, it meant she was young. Coupled with her extraordinary cultivation base, one could tell she had an extraordinary innate spiritual root. Otherwise, how could she possess a cultivation base at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage at such a young age? Yellow innate spiritual root? Duan Lingtian did not mind the Saint Lan's disciple saying he had a yellow innate spiritual root. At the same time, he realized the Saint Land Enforcement Hall did not seem to have spread the news about him possessing a blue innate spiritual root. After all, other people might not know he possessed a blue innate spiritual root, but the Saint Land Enforcement Hall would definitely know about it. Previously, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall had shown mercy to him because he possessed a blue innate spiritual root. It's said that the reason Duan Lingtian is so strong is because he has mastered 4 high-grade divine abilities. However, with his yellow innate spiritual root, it'll be difficult for him to improve in the future. As long as senior sister Wen Yin has time, she'll be able to return the humiliation to him. Indeed, Duan Lingtian is currently stronger than senior sister Wen Yin because he has mastered many high-grade divine abilities. Once senior sister Wen Yin's cultivation base improves, it'll be easy for her to seek revenge in the future. I really don't know what Duan Lingtian is thinking. He actually dares to offend a successor disciple like senior sister Wen Yin who has a bright future ahead of her. Perhaps he thought senior sister Wen Yin would agree to sign a death pact with him and enter the Hall of Life and Death to fight to the death. If he killed senior sister Wen Yin, he naturally wouldn't have to worry that senior sister Wen Yin would seek revenge from him. Who would have thought senior sister Wen Yin would be so smart as to reject his death pact? Speaking of which, I was there at that time. In the beginning, I was puzzled when I saw senior sister Wen Yin did not dare to accept Duan Lingtian's death pact. I even thought senior sister Wen Yin was too timid. However, it seems like senior sister Wen Yin is not timid at all. Instead, she's a strategist. On the way to the Fire Remuneration Palace, Duan Lingtian heard many Saint Lan disciples whispering among themselves. Strategist? Strategist? When Duan Lingtian heard some of the Saint Lan disciples praising Wen Yin, he almost laughed out loud. As the person involved, it was only natural that he could tell. The reason Wen Yin did not dare to accept his death pact was because she was afraid. She did not dare to take the risk. It had nothing to do with strategizing or calculating from 1,000 miles away. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Lingtian walked into the Fire Remuneration Palace. Under the guidance of the Saint Lan disciples, he came to a counter in the Fire Remuneration Palace. Duan Lingtian is planning to accept the new assignment from the Enforcement Hall and serve in the Enforcement Hall. At the same time, many Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace could guess what Duan Lingtian was going to do. These Saint Lan disciples were either present 10 days ago or had heard about Duan Lingtian's intention to serve in the Enforcement Hall. Elder, I'm here to accept the assignment from the Enforcement Hall for the true disciples. I'd like to serve in the Enforcement Hall, Duan Lingtian said to the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter without beating around the bush. Duan Lingtian. The Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter also recognized Duan Lingtian and shook his head. Chapter 2024. Only you, Duan Lingtian, can't do it. As soon as the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter finished speaking, the entire Fire Remuneration Palace fell into dead silence again. The Saint Lan disciples present on the scene looked at the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder before they shifted their gazes to Duan Lingtian. All of them were dumbfounded and had an expression of disbelief on their faces. What was going on? The Enforcement Hall's elder had directly refused to allow Duan Lingtian to accept the assignment issued by the Enforcement Hall under the circumstances of naming him. Was this not an abuse of power and bullying? Isn't this a little too much? Many Saint Lan disciples could not help but complain when they regained their senses. They felt indignant for Duan Lingtian. There must be a reason for this. Don't you think this is strange? Why did the Enforcement Hall's elder only make things difficult for Duan Lingtian and not others? Soon after, another Saint Lan disciple chimed in. It's indeed strange. It seems like Duan Lingtian has offended the Enforcement Hall's elder. Otherwise, he wouldn't have targeted him like this. A Saint Lan disciple speculated. Duan Lingtian really knows how to cause trouble. Now, he has even offended the enforcement hall's elder. Now that he has offended the enforcement hall's elder, I'm afraid it's impossible for him to continue serving in the enforcement hall. Many Saint Lan disciples shook their heads. However, the enforcement hall's elder is abusing his power to a certain extent by doing this, right? If he doesn't have a reason to reject Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission from the enforcement hall, Duan Lingtian can definitely sue him in the enforcement hall. If I'm Duan Lingtian, I'll definitely sue him. I'll make sure he can't bear the consequences. I think since the enforcement hall's elder dares to reject Duan Lingtian so blatantly, he must have thought of a reason. It might not work if Duan Lingtian sues him. I think so too. As the enforcement hall's elder, he knows the rules of Zoroastrianism very well. Under such circumstances, why would he allow Duan Lingtian to sue him? The atmosphere within the Fire Remuneration Palace became noisy again after a moment of silence. The group of disciples was discussing the matter of the enforcement hall's elder not allowing Duan Lingtian to accept the enforcement hall's mission. While the group of Holy Land's disciples were having a heated discussion, Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses. When he came back to his senses, his face was completely gloomy. That law enforcement hall elder was clearly targeting him on purpose. For a moment, even though Duan Lingtian didn't know who the elder of the law enforcement hall was, he couldn't help but feel a fire in his heart. The flames of fury seemed to be able to burn down everything. Elder. May I know which elder of the law enforcement hall is the one who specifically asked me not to accept the mission that the law enforcement hall issued for the true disciples? Taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian asked the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter. He had especially emphasized the words true disciple. I'm a true disciple, and I completely meet the requirements to accept the mission issued by the law enforcement hall. May I know why he doesn't allow me to accept the mission issued by the law enforcement hall? When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, a hint of questioning could be heard in his tone. The Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter frowned when faced with Duan Lingtian's questioning. If it was any other elite Holy Land disciple who dared to question him, he would have long been kicked out of the Fire Remuneration Palace. However, Duan Lingtian, who was standing in front of him, was someone who had defeated the person ranked 9th on the true ranking. Duan Lingtian was a true disciple who was even stronger than him. In this world where the strong were revered, naturally, he did not dare to voice his displeasure when faced with such a true disciple. Elder, don't tell me you don't know which enforcement elder specifically asked me not to accept the mission issued by the law enforcement hall, Duan Lingtian said in a deep voice. His expression turned grave when he saw the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter remain silent. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, a voice rang in the Fire Remuneration Palace's hall. How dare you? Before the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder could speak, a loud voice resonated from the Fire Remuneration Palace's inner palace. It instantly attracted everyone's attention, including Duan Lingtian. Soon after, under the watchful eyes of the others, 2 young men walked out of the Fire Remuneration Palace's inner palace one after another. The person who had shouted was none other than the young man who was walking in front. This young man had an ordinary appearance and was dressed in the uniform of a Holy Land's bronze flame elder. As soon as he walked out of the inner palace, his cold gaze immediately landed on Duan Lingtian. At the same time, he said coldly, I'm the one who specifically asked you not to accept the mission issued by the Law Enforcement Hall for true disciples. Are you unhappy? Whoosh. The moment the young man's words left his mouth, the Fire Remuneration Palace's Saint Lan disciples shifted their attention from him to his face. Elder Dong Lin. When the gazes of the Saint Lan's disciples landed on the young man, many of them recognized him immediately. It's actually Elder Dong Lin who specifically asked Duan Lingtian not to accept the mission issued by the Law Enforcement Hall. Oh my god. He's the Law Enforcement Hall's elder that Duan Lingtian has offended? Elder Dong Lin is the son of Vice Hall Master Dong of our Zoroastrianism's Law Enforcement Hall. Although he's only a bronze flame elder, with his background, even the silver flame elders in the entire Zoroastrianism don't dare to offend him, let alone the Law Enforcement Hall. I really don't know how Duan Lingtian managed to offend him. How can he be on duty in the law enforcement hall after offending him? What a joke. Although Elder Dong Lin is the only son of Vice Hall Master Dong of the Law Enforcement Hall, he shouldn't be so bold as to abuse his power in such a high-profile manner. He must have a reason to stop Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission issued by the Law Enforcement Hall. There's no doubt about that. After all, as the only son of Vice Hall Master Dong, Elder Dong Lin must know the rules of the Zoroastrianism very well. It's impossible for him to violate the rules. In the Fire Remuneration Palace, a group of Saint Lan disciples whispered among themselves. Not only did they point out that Duan Lingtian was the elder from the Law Enforcement Hall who did not allow Duan Lingtian to accept the mission issued by the Law Enforcement Hall, but they also agreed that the elder from the Law Enforcement Hall must have a legitimate reason to stop Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission issued by the Law Enforcement Hall. Dong Lin, the son of the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall? Naturally, Duan Lingtian heard the whispers among the Saint Lan disciples. His expression immediately darkened. At the same time, he stared at Dong Lin with a cold glint in his eyes. Elder Dong Lin, is it? I wonder how I've offended you? Duan Lingtian had a grim expression as he asked coldly, What? Based on your words, don't tell me you think I'm deliberately picking on you? Dong Lin sneered when he heard Duan Lingtian's question. Even if he was really picking on Duan Lingtian, it was impossible for him to admit it. Otherwise, he would be severely punished by the Law Enforcement Hall, even if he was the son of the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. Isn't that senior brother Chin Pong? At the same time, many Saint Lan disciples recognized the young man standing behind Dong Lin when they saw him. This young man had an ordinary appearance like Dong Lin. He was dressed in the uniform of a true disciple. At this moment, his eyes were trained on Duan Lingtian as killing intent flashed in the depth of his eyes. I heard that senior brother Chun Pong has a good relationship with Elder Dong Lin. Now that I've met him, the rumors are indeed true. One of the Saint Lan disciples exclaimed. I remember senior brother Chun Pong seems to be the direct disciple of Li En, the first silver flame elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum of the Four Symbols Pagoda. I think I know why Elder Dong Lin would target Duan Lingtian for no reason. Another Saint Lan disciple chimed in. Initially, I was wondering why Duan Lingtian would offend Elder Dong Lin. As it turns out, the person Duan Lingtian offended is not Elder Dong Lin, but senior brother Chin Pong. Senior brother Chun Pong is Elder Lian's youngest direct disciple. Duan Lingtian first killed Elder Lian's grand disciple, Yuan Hong, who's also senior brother Chun Ping's junior nephew. Then, he indirectly caused the death of Elder Lian's first direct disciple, Wei He, who's also senior brother Chin Ping's great senior brother. Senior brother Chin Pong must hate Duan Lingtian to the core. It's because he hates Duan Lingtian that he asked Elder Dong Lin to make things difficult for Duan Lingtian. Now, everything makes sense. However, since Elder Dong Lin is willing to help, he must not be worried that Duan Lingtian will sue him for abusing his power. I wonder what reason he'll use to reject Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission from the Enforcement Hall. When the group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace recognized Chin Pong, they turned to look at Dong Lin again. All of them wanted to know what reason Dong Lin would use to reject Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission from the Enforcement Hall. After all, as a true disciple, Duan Lingtian should be able to accept the mission from the Enforcement Hall unconditionally. However, Dong Lin had interfered and specifically rejected Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission. Don't tell me you're not intentionally picking on me? Duan Lingtian asked with a sneer as he shifted his gaze from Chun Pong to Dong Lin. His gaze turned even colder. When Duan Lingtian heard the whispers among the Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace, he finally understood why Dong Lin was picking on him. As it turned out, it was all because of the young man standing behind him, Chin Pong. Apart from being a true disciple, Chun Pong was also the direct disciple of the Black Turtle Sanctum's first silver flame elder, Lian. As for Lian, he was his sworn enemy, the kind that would not rest until one of them was dead. Of course not. When Dong Lin heard Duan Lingtian's words, the sneer on his face deepened. He continued to say bluntly, The reason I specifically rejected you from accepting the mission from the enforcement hall that targets true disciples is because I don't want the enforcement hall's reputation to be tarnished because of you. In fact, in the history of the enforcement hall, we've never accepted a person with a yellow innate spiritual root to serve in the enforcement hall. Chapter 2025. If a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root is allowed to enter the enforcement hall, people might think the enforcement hall would accept any Tom, Dick, and Harry if this matter spreads out. Dong Lin looked at Duan Lingtian disdainfully as he said in front of the Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace, "The reputation of the enforcement hall can't be tarnished by a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root. Moreover, if the news of the enforcement hall accepting a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root spreads, people would think there's no one in the Zoroastrianism." Dong Lin's words conveyed the meaning of the enforcement hall's reputation. The enforcement hall valued its reputation and would not accept a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root. Not only was he doing this for the sake of the enforcement hall's reputation, but he was also doing this for the sake of the reputation of the entire Zoroastrianism. Yellow innate spiritual root? Mediocre? Duan Lingtian thought Dong Lin would come up with an excuse. He did not expect Dong Lin would bring this up. Was Dong Lin really an elder of the enforcement hall? Logically speaking, shouldn't the people in the St. Lan's enforcement hall know he possessed a blue innate spiritual root? Duan Lingtian could not figure this out. However, based on the current situation, it was obvious Dong Lin did not know he possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Otherwise, he would not have come up with such an excuse to make things difficult for him. Then, Duan Lingtian looked at Chen Peng, who was standing behind Dong Lin. He noticed there was a hint of gloating in Chen Peng's eyes when he looked at Duan Lingtian. Chen Peng doesn't know I possess a blue innate spiritual root as well? Duan Lingtian was stunned. Previously, Li An's first direct disciple, Wei He, had gone to the enforcement hall to accuse the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder, Gua Xiong, of abusing his authority because he did not believe Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. In the end, Wei He was executed for blasphemy against the enforcement hall's reputation. Wei He's death undoubtedly told Lian another truth. He Duan Lingtian indeed possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Looks like Chen Peng did not discuss this with Lian before finding trouble with me. Otherwise, he would not have allowed Dong Lin to use such a lousy excuse to make things difficult for me. It was not difficult for Duan Lingtian to guess. Moreover, it's obvious Dong Lin doesn't know I possess a blue innate spiritual root. It seems like he didn't pay attention to the fact that Qin Peng's senior brother, Wei He, was sentenced to death by the enforcement hall. Otherwise, it's impossible for him not to know that I possess a blue innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. The truth was just as Duan Lingtian had guessed. Whether it was Dong Lin or Chen Peng, none of them knew Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root instead of a yellow innate spiritual root. The reason Dong Lin did not know Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root was because he had been away for a long time and had only returned a few days ago. For this reason, he did not have the time to find out about the fact that Chen Peng's senior brother, Wei He, was sentenced to death by the enforcement hall. Otherwise, he would have found out Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root instead of a yellow innate spiritual root through the files in the enforcement hall. As for Chen Peng, he had only come out of closed-door cultivation recently. As soon as he came out of closed-door cultivation, he heard that his great senior brother, Wei He, had been indirectly killed by Duan Lingtian. Coincidentally, Duan Lingtian had come to the Saint Land and killed the true disciple, Yang Wan. Then, he even suppressed the true disciple, Wen Yin, who was stronger than him. Not only that, but he had also ruthlessly humiliated her. At that time, Qin Peng realized it was impossible. It was difficult for him to avenge his senior brother with his own strength. Coincidentally, he had also heard that Duan Lingtian wanted to be assigned to the enforcement hall. He immediately went to the enforcement hall to look for Dong Lin, who had just returned to the Zoroastrianism sect. He asked Dong Lin for help in rejecting Duan Lingtian from being assigned to the enforcement hall. He had already thought of an excuse. He would use Duan Lingtian's yellow innate spiritual root as an excuse. For this reason, The scene in the Fire Remuneration Palace had unfolded. Elder Dong Lin, if you really want to say this, it's a good excuse. After all, from the Hall Master and Vice Hall Master to the Bronze Flame Elder and True Disciples, there seems to be no one with a yellow innate spiritual root in the Enforcement Hall. Many Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace muttered among themselves. They knew Dong Lin was looking for an excuse. However, they could not find any fault with the excuse he came up with. After all, this matter did not affect the Zoroastrianism sect since they knew about Duan Lingtian's strength. Even if they knew Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root, they would not be surprised if he was assigned to the Enforcement Hall. However, the people outside the Enforcement Hall did not know Duan Lingtian at all. In their opinion, this was not the case at all. If the Zoroastrianism Enforcement Hall accepted someone with a yellow innate spiritual root, it was undoubtedly because there was no one else in the Zoroastrianism sect. If news of this spread out, the entire Zoroastrianism sect would be humiliated. You can't say that. Naturally, many Saint Lan disciples stood up for Duan Lingtian. Although Elder Dong Lin has a point, there's always an exception. Although Duan Lingtian only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root, his strength is stronger than most of the Bronze Flame Elders and true disciples of the Zoroastrianism sect. If such a person isn't qualified to be assigned to the Enforcement Hall, who else is? Many Saint Lan disciples looked at Dong Lin with dissatisfaction and hatred in their eyes. They felt Dong Lin had crossed the line. Although that's the case, it's a fact that Duan Lingtian only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root. Naturally, we Zoroastrianism believe in Duan Lingtian's deeds. However, if news of this spread out, most people won't believe it. A Saint Lan disciple said, "That's right. Even if news of Duan Lingtian joining the Zoroastrianism spreads out, it's unlikely that people will believe it. They'll only think it's fake news made up by the Zoroastrianism sect." That's true. For this reason, even if Elder Dong Lin uses this as an excuse to reject Duan Lingtian from being assigned to the Enforcement Hall, the Enforcement Hall might not accept it even if Duan Lingtian goes to the Enforcement Hall and accuses Elder Dong Lin of abusing his power for personal gain. To a certain extent, Elder Dong Lin has some reason in this matter. Of course, anyone can see that he did it on purpose. However, so what? After all, Duan Lingtian only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root. If Duan Lingtian did not possess a yellow innate spiritual root, this wouldn't have happened. In the end, it's all because his innate spiritual roots grade is too low. The group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace discussed among themselves. Many of them shook their heads as they looked at Duan Lingtian. It was as though they felt sorry for Duan Lingtian. However, Duan Lingtian is already so strong even though he only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root. In the history of the fire worship sect, there's no one like him who has such a strong innate spiritual root. One of the Saint Lan disciples could not help but exclaim, "It's not just Zoroastrianism. Even in the history of the Tao martial Saint Lan since ancient times, I've never heard of someone like Duan Lingtian." Duan Lingtian only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root, and his cultivation base is only at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. However, he's able to kill a powerhouse at the first form of the Saint Celestial stage and defeat an elite powerhouse at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage. He's indeed unprecedented in the Tao martial Saint Land. He's really a genius. Although God gave Duan Lingtian a peerless innate talent in comprehending divine abilities, he forgot to give him an innate talent in cultivation. That's why he only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root. A yellow innate spiritual root is considered a good innate spiritual root in the outside world. However, in Zoroastrianism, people with yellow innate spiritual roots are everywhere. It's not worth mentioning at all. No matter what, many Saint Lan disciples were still amazed by Duan Lingtian's current strength even though he only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. Naturally, in the opinion of these Saint Lan disciples, Duan Lingtian's future was limited. Moreover, Duan Lingtian's cultivation base might remain at the peak of the exemplary saint stage for the rest of his life. Duan Lingtian. At the same time, Dong Lin looked at Duan Lingtian again and said mockingly, "Now, Do you still think I'm abusing my authority for personal gain? Dong Lin's attitude was haughty and condescending. It was as though Duan Ling Tian was just an ant in his eyes that he could trample on. Don't tell me you still don't know whether you're abusing your authority for personal gain? Duan Ling Tian sneered, unwilling to be outdone. What? Even now, you're still not convinced? The mocking smile on Dong Lin's face deepened. Don't tell me I didn't make myself clear earlier? You're just a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root. If you enter the enforcement hall, not only will you embarrass the enforcement hall, but you'll also embarrass Zoroastrianism. Don't tell me you're willing to embarrass Zoroastrianism in front of outsiders for your own selfish desires? When Dong Lin reached the end of his sentence, he invisibly labeled Duan Lingtian as someone who was willing to embarrass Zoroastrianism. Are you done? No matter what Dong Lin said, Duan Lingtian's expression remained calm. It was as though Dong Lin's words did not affect him at all. What? Don't tell me you're going to continue after I've finished speaking? What are you going to say? Are you going to say that you're not inferior to most of the true disciples? Dong Lin was, naturally, displeased when he saw Duan Lingtian's calm expression. He could not help but scoff. Don't forget, the people outside are not like our own people in Zoroastrianism. They won't believe a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root like you has the strength to be ranked in the top 10 of the true ranking. Dong Lin's words were impeccable. Chapter 2026. Duan Lingtian merely glanced at Dong Lin indifferently before he shifted his gaze to the Fire Remuneration Palace's bronze flame elder behind the counter. The group of Saint Lan disciples from the Fire Remuneration Palace did not understand why Duan Lingtian would suddenly change his mind. Duan Lingtian finally spoke. Elder, you must have a spiritual pearl that can be used to test innate spiritual roots, right? As soon as Duan Lingtian spoke, he asked the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter for a spiritual pearl that could be used to test innate spiritual roots. The entire place fell silent immediately. After a while, a commotion broke out again. Duan Lingtian is asking for a spiritual pearl from the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder? Does he intend to test his innate spiritual root in public? I think so. Isn't his innate spiritual root a yellow spiritual root? I heard that when he first came to our sect for Zoroastrianism, he went through 2 tests. However, he only has a yellow innate spiritual root. Don't tell me he thinks his innate spiritual root will change? Isn't this a joke? When the group of Saint Lan disciples discussed among themselves, they were all mocking Duan Lingtian for being too naive. Haha. Dong Lin, on the other hand, laughed loudly. After he stopped laughing, he looked at Duan Lingtian with disdain and said mockingly, Duan Lingtian, don't tell me you think your innate spiritual root will change as your strength increases? What a joke. Chen Pong, who was standing behind Dong Lin, also had a mocking smile on his face. He mocked Duan Lingtian for being too naive and ridiculous. Elder. However, Duan Lingtian acted as though he did not hear Dong Lin's mocking words. He looked at the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder, who was in a daze, and reminded him. At this moment, the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter finally regained his senses. At the same time, he took out a crystal-clear spiritual pearl from his spatial ring. It was none other than the spiritual pearl that could be used to test innate spiritual roots. Duan Lingtian, do you really want to take the test? Is that necessary? The Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter could not help but ask as he passed the spiritual pearl to Duan Lingtian. In his opinion, a person was born with an innate spiritual root, and it was almost impossible to improve it. Of course, it was not completely impossible to improve. Legend had it that a powerhouse who had ascended to the Devata realms could improve a person's innate spiritual root. However, that was only a legend. Moreover, in the history of the Dao Martial Saint Land, there had never been anyone who had ascended to a Devata realm and returned. Based on this, it was likely that the legend was false. Even if it was true, it was almost impossible to achieve. Is that necessary? At this moment, it was not only the Fire Remuneration Palace's elders who felt this way. Even the group of Saint Lan disciples present felt the same way. This Duan Lingtian is crazy. I'm speechless. Does he think his innate spiritual root can still be improved? Humph. If he wants to be tested, let him be. In any case, it's an undeniable fact that he only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root. The group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace began to whisper among themselves again. All of them felt Duan Lingtian's actions were unnecessary. Duan Lingtian turned a blind eye to the doubts of everyone in the Fire Remuneration Palace. After taking the spiritual pearl from the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder, Duan Lingtian did not rush to test it. Instead, he walked toward Dong Lin with the spiritual pearl in his hand and stopped in front of him. When Dong Lin saw Duan Lingtian walking toward him, horror dawned on him immediately. He instinctively took a step back in a panic. Although he had just returned from outside a few days ago, he had heard many rumors about Duan Lingtian. He knew Duan Lingtian was so strong that he could even defeat Wen Yin, who was ranked 9th on the true ranking. He knew he was not a match for Wen Yin. However, when he instinctively took a step back and saw Duan Lingtian had stopped in front of him and had no intention of making a move, his face turned pale. At this moment, he could clearly sense the gazes that fell on him from the surroundings. They were all mixed with disdain. This made him feel humiliated and angry. Elder Dong Lin seems to be afraid of Duan Lingtian as well. How can he not be afraid? Although Elder Dong Lin is strong, he's not a match for senior sister Wen Yin. Since Duan Lingtian can defeat senior sister Wen Yin, it's only natural that he can defeat Elder Dong Lin as well. No matter what, he's still an enforcement hall's elder. Moreover, he has the upper hand since the beginning. His actions have affected my impression of him. That's right. I feel like he's subconsciously lowered his head in front of Duan Lingtian. Many Saint Lan disciples could not help but whisper among themselves when they saw Dong Lin staggered a step back as Duan Lingtian approached him. However, even though their voices were low, which one of the people present didn't have amazing hearing? When Dong Lin heard these words, he was so angry that he almost threw up blood. However, he quickly vented all his anger on Duan Lingtian. He looked at Duan Lingtian and asked coldly, "Duan Lingtian, what are you trying to do?" "What am I trying to do? What can I do? Don't tell me Elder Dong Lin is worried that I'll kill you in front of so many people?" Duan Lingtian said mockingly, "Elder Dong Lin, if that's what you think, then I'm afraid you're destined to be disappointed. In my opinion, my life is much more valuable than yours. You want me to exchange my life for yours? I, Duan Lingtian, won't do such a thing." Based on Duan Lingtian's words, it was clear Dong Lin's life was not as important as his life. These words immediately infuriated Dong Lin to the point where his face turned green and white. Initially, Dong Lin had only come to look for trouble with Duan Lingtian because of Chen Peng's instructions. However, Dong Lin now hated Duan Lingtian to the core. He viewed Duan Lingtian as his mortal enemy. He was the only son of one of the vice hall masters of the enforcement hall. In the Zoroastrianism, even the true disciples who were ranked in the top 3 on the true ranking would not dare to belittle him in public like Duan Lingtian did. "Elder Dong Lin, watch carefully," Duan Lingtian said in a low voice when Dong Lin's expression turned extremely grave. Then, he lifted his hand that was holding the spiritual pearl, exposing it to Dong Lin. At the same time, he sent his son's saint energy into the spiritual pearl. After 10 breaths, the spiritual pearl would change, and the grade of his innate spiritual root would be revealed. Your innate spiritual root is a yellow innate spiritual root. This is a fact that everyone in the Zoroastrianism knows. Even if I don't look at it, I can guess the result. When Dong Lin regained his senses, the disdain on his face deepened. He raised his head arrogantly, not even bothering to look at the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand. However, although Chen Peng, who was standing behind Dong Lin, was also looking at Duan Lingtian with a mocking smile on his face, he could not help but look at the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand. At the same time, in the Fire Remuneration Palace, including the few Fire Remuneration Palace's elders behind the counters and the group of Saint Lan disciples, all of them were staring at the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand. Even though they had already guessed and even confirmed the outcome, they could not help but be attracted by the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand. Time continued to pass by. A breath passed in just a blink of an eye. 2 breaths passed in just a blink of an eye. 3 breaths passed in just a blink of an eye. 10 breaths passed in just a blink of an eye to the group of people in the Fire Remuneration Palace. After the span of 10 breaths, the spiritual pearl in Duanling Tian's hand finally began to change. It began to emit a faint luster before it began to expand. It was as though it was a miniature sun. When they saw the color of the spiritual pearl in Duanling Tian's hand that was shining, they were stunned. In the Fire Remuneration Palace, apart from Dong Lin, who raised his head arrogantly and did not look at the spiritual pearl, the group of people, including Chen Peng, could not help but stare at the spiritual pearl in Duanling Tian's hand in shock and disbelief. Many people rubbed their eyes hard a few times, thinking that they were seeing things. Some of them even pinched their thighs hard. When they felt the pain in their thighs, they realized they were not dreaming. Impossible. Impossible. Soon after, a voice filled with disbelief rang in the air. It belonged to Chen Peng, who was standing behind Dong Lin. Chen Peng had an expression of disbelief on his face when he saw the spiritual pearl in Duanling Tian's hand that was shining brightly. It was precisely because of this that he kept repeating the word impossible. However, the truth before his eyes seemed to be a constant reminder to him. Nothing was impossible. Dong Lin, who had raised his head arrogantly since the beginning as though he did not care to look at Duanling Tian's test results, was actually paying attention to Duanling Tian's test results, even though he seemed disdainful on the surface. Although he was 100% certain Duanling Tian possessed a yellow innate spiritual root, he could not help but pay close attention to Duanling Tian's test result. After the span of 10 breaths had passed, the hissing sound that he had expected did not ring in his ears. At that time, his heart skipped a beat. He had a feeling something was amiss. Then, Chen Peng's voice rang in the air, causing him to shudder again. He immediately lowered his head to look at the spiritual pearl in Duanling Tian's hand. At this moment, the spiritual pearl in Duanling Tian's hand was shining with a dazzling green light. The green light was, without a doubt, a declaration to everyone. Duanling Tian did not possess a yellow innate spiritual root, but a blue innate spiritual root. How's this possible? Chapter 2027. How was this possible? At this moment, Dong Lin was not the only one who thought so. In the Fire Remuneration Palace, apart from Duanling Tian himself, everyone's eyes were trained on Duanling Tian. They did not look away for a long time. Their gazes were filled with shock and disbelief. To them, this was simply too shocking. The scene before his eyes was simply too inconceivable. Blue innate spiritual root. How can it be a blue innate spiritual root? Is there something wrong with the spiritual pearl? Isn't Duanling Tian a yellow innate spiritual root? How can it be a blue innate spiritual root? I also think there's something wrong with the spiritual pearl that tests innate spiritual root. Duanling Tian's innate spiritual root has already been tested twice. However, both times, he only has a yellow innate spiritual root. There must be something wrong with the spiritual pearl. The group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace had long assumed that Duanling Tian only had a yellow innate spiritual root. Due to this reason, they could not believe what they were seeing. Moreover, Duanling Tian had also tested his innate spiritual root twice in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Both times, he only had a yellow innate spiritual root. For this reason, most of the Saint Lan disciples thought there was something wrong with the spiritual pearl. Humph! There must be something wrong with the spiritual pearl. Duanling Tian, if you're so capable, try another spiritual pearl. I don't believe a mediocre person who only has a yellow innate spiritual root would be found to have a blue innate spiritual root twice. Chen Peng, who was standing behind Dong Lin, snorted coldly. His tone was filled with disdain. Mediocre? When Duanling Tian heard Chen Peng's words, he immediately looked at Chen Peng and said mockingly, Chen Peng, since you said I'm mediocre, let me ask you, do you dare to go to the Palace of Death with me and sign a death pact for fun? Sign a life and death contract for fun? When the disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace heard Duanling Tian mocking Chen Peng, they burst into an uproar. Duanling Tian, are you addicted to signing life and death contracts? Isn't it obvious? First, he signed a death pact with Yang Wan. Then, He had a conflict with senior sister Wen Yin and threatened to sign a death pact with senior sister Wen Yin. Now, he wanted to sign a death pact with Chen Peng. If this isn't addiction, then what is? Although Chen Peng is the direct disciple of the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder, Lian, and a true disciple of the Zoroastrianism, he's much weaker than senior sister Wen Yin. I'm sure he wouldn't dare to sign a death pact with Duan Lingtian. Isn't that obvious? Unless he wants to die. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to sign a life and death contract with Duan Lingtian. The group of Saint Lan disciples was 100% certain Chen Peng would not dare to sign a death pact with Duan Lingtian. Although Chen Peng did not dare to sign a death pact with Duan Lingtian, he could not help but feel humiliated when he heard the group of Saint Lan disciples' discussion. His face turned pale. Various expressions appeared on Chen Peng's face, but he did not dare to make a sound. It was as though he did not hear Duan Lingtian's words. If it was an ordinary person, perhaps Duan Lingtian would have given him a way out. However, this person was Chen Peng, Lian's direct disciple. He was the culprit behind today's incident. Duan Lingtian did not consider giving such a person a way out at all. What's wrong? You don't dare? Duan Lingtian looked at Chen Peng with disdain and smiled disdainfully. Didn't you say I'm mediocre? You don't even dare to sign a death pact with a mediocre person. Are you indirectly admitting that you're inferior to a mediocre person? The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Chen Peng was so angry that his face turned red. His anger accumulated as though it was about to set a prairie ablaze. However, he did not dare to vent his anger on Duan Lingtian. He felt as though his lungs were about to explode. It seems like you've already admitted you're inferior to a mediocre person. Duan Lingtian chuckled when he saw Chen Peng did not dare to make a sound even though he was enraged. He said mockingly, in my opinion, you, Chen Peng, are a complete piece of trash. Trash. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Chen Peng was so angry that he roared, Duan Lingtian, don't cross the line. Being called trash in front of so many people, even Chen Peng couldn't take it anymore. Naturally, even if he could not tolerate it, he would only vent his anger with his mouth. He did not have the guts to make a move. Cross the line? Duan Lingtian was amused when he heard Chen Peng's words. However, he maintained a calm expression on his face. Am I wrong? If you want to prove you're not trash, you can sign a death pact with me. As long as you have the guts, I'll give you a chance. Duan Lingtian's words had undoubtedly added fuel to the fire. Chen Peng was even angrier, but he could not refute it at all. After all, he did not dare to sign a death pact with Duan Lingtian. Humph! At this moment, Dong Lin, who had remained silent for a long time, suddenly snorted coldly. He looked at Duan Lingtian deeply before he walked out of the Fire Remuneration Palace without saying anything. Upon seeing Dong Lin's actions, the group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace burst into an uproar again. What's Elder Dong Lin doing? He's leaving just like that? This is different from what I expected. It's different from what I expected as well. I thought Elder Dong Lin would definitely think there's something wrong with the spiritual pearl and ask Duan Lingtian to use another spiritual pearl to test his innate talent. However, not only did he not make such a request to Duan Lingtian, but he even left without saying anything. Don't tell me Elder Dong Lin really believes Duan Lingtian has a blue innate spiritual root? That's ridiculous. I thought Elder Dong Lin wouldn't believe it since even I don't believe it. I can't believe he actually believes it. He believes Duan Lingtian has a blue innate spiritual root. The group of Saint Lan disciples discussed among themselves. They could not understand Dong Lin's reaction. Senior brother Dong Lin. Even Chen Peng did not expect Dong Lin's reaction. He only regained his senses when Dong Lin walked out of the Fire Remuneration Palace. He had a puzzled expression on his face as he called out to Dong Lin. However, Dong Lin ignored him and continued walking out of the Fire Remuneration Palace. There was something wrong with the spiritual pearl used to test one's innate spiritual root? Dong Lin had suspected this as well. However, he had never heard of anything wrong with the spiritual pearl used to test one's innate spiritual root. Coupled with the confidence Duan Lingtian had shown since the beginning, even Dong Lin could not help but feel wary. If it was confirmed that Duan Lingtian had a blue innate spiritual root, he would not be able to get out of this embarrassing situation. After all, if it was confirmed that Duan Lingtian had a blue innate spiritual root, the excuse he used would be exposed. He would be accused of abusing his authority. As an enforcement hall's elder, even if he was the only son of the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, he did not dare to abuse his authority in public. Put aside the fact that there were a few vice hall masters in the enforcement hall, there was a hall master above them. If news of him abusing his authority spread out, the hall master of the enforcement hall would definitely be enraged. At that time, even his father would not be able to let him off the hook. For this reason, Dong Lin did not investigate the authenticity of the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand. He did not think it was necessary. Naturally, he also felt it was too risky to do so. It would be fine if Duan Lingtian had a yellow innate spiritual root. However, if it was confirmed that he had a blue innate spiritual root, he would be in trouble. When the group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace saw Dong Lin ignoring Chen Peng, an expression of disbelief appeared on their faces. They did not expect Dong Lin would leave just like that. Even the Fire Remuneration Palace's elders behind the counter were shocked. They did not expect Dong Lin would leave at this moment. Wait. Just as Dong Lin was about to step out of the Fire Remuneration Palace's entrance, a voice suddenly sounded and broke the silence in the Fire Remuneration Palace. Then, under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Lingtian swiftly flew out and arrived at the entrance of the Fire Remuneration Palace in just a blink of an eye. He blocked Dong Lin's path just in time. This scene instantly lifted the spirits of the Fire Remuneration Palace's disciples present on the scene. All of them looked as though they had been injected with chicken blood as they stared at Duan Lingtian, who was blocking Dong Lin's path excitedly. As it turned out, they had thought there would be no more drama to watch after Dong Lin left. However, they did not expect things would take a turn for the better. Duan Lingtian had blocked Dong Lin's path. Chen Peng stood in the distance. When he called out to Dong Lin earlier, Dong Lin had ignored him. He was confused and disappointed. Now that Dong Lin had left, he would not be able to stop Duan Lingtian alone. However, when he saw Duan Lingtian had taken the initiative to block Dong Lin's path as though he was looking for trouble, his eyes lit up immediately. The scene in front of him was something he was happy to see. Duan Lingtian. Dong Lin was furious when he saw Duan Lingtian blocking his path. He asked in a low voice, "Do you really think I'm Wen Yin?" Although he had heard about Duan Lingtian blocking Wen Yan's path in the Fire Remuneration Palace 10 days ago, he did not expect Duan Lingtian would dare to block his path. Perhaps his innate talent and strength were not as good as Wen Yan. However, he had a father who was the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, who was equivalent to a golden flame elder in Zoroastrianism. Due to the special status of the enforcement hall in Zoroastrianism, his father's status was higher than most golden flame elders. Wen Yin was merely a direct disciple of an ordinary golden flame elder. However, he was the only son of the enforcement hall's vice hall master. Elder Dong Lin, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Chapter 2028. Duan Lingtian said calmly. Those who did not know better would think he was talking to a good friend of many years. However, the people in the Fire Remuneration Palace could clearly sense the tension between Duan Lingtian and Dong Lin. They could see it. Currently, Dong Lin did not want to be entangled in this matter, but Duan Lingtian did not want to let it go. Where does Duan Lingtian get his courage from? If I were him, I would have let Elder Dong Lin leave. After all, Elder Dong Lin's presence will only bring harm to him. Isn't he worried Elder Dong Lin will ask him to take another spiritual pearl to test his innate spiritual root? Many Saint Lan disciples said. Based on their words, they felt Duan Lingtian did not know what was good for him. Naturally, there were also some Saint Lan disciples who were more objective. Duan Lingtian still dares to stop Elder Dong Lin at this moment. This shows he's a confident person. Don't tell me the news we heard earlier is false. Is it true that Duan Lingtian has a blue innate spiritual root and not a yellow innate spiritual root? If his innate spiritual root is not a blue innate spiritual root, it'll only bring harm to him if he stops Elder Dong Lin now. It seems like his innate spiritual root might really be a blue innate spiritual root. If his innate spiritual root is really a blue innate spiritual root with his temper, I'm afraid Elder Donglin won't be able to get out of this embarrassing situation. The Holy Land disciples who said such words were the calmer ones. Based on the current situation, they could faintly sense that Duan Lingtian might really possess a blue innate spiritual root. Naturally, there were only a few Saint Land disciples who were calm. Most of the Saint Land disciples still felt Duan Lingtian was looking for trouble. Duan Lingtian, as long as you let me go, we'll forget about the conflict between us. Furthermore, I can recommend you to serve in the law enforcement hall. Dong Lin, who had been glaring at Duan Lingtian, sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. It was clear from his tone that he wanted to make peace. The reason he did this was because Duan Lingtian had stopped him from doing so. Behind this action, he could faintly sense Duan Lingtian's confidence in himself. It was a confidence that was completely unafraid of being questioned. Dong Lin immediately guessed Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Otherwise, how could Duan Lingtian have the courage to stop him? Elder Dong Lin, did I hear wrongly? You sent me a voice transmission just to make peace with me? Almost at the same time that Dong Lin sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian, Duan Lingtian also spoke, his voice echoing throughout the entire Fire Remuneration Palace. What's wrong? Are you saying that you're in the wrong for making such a decision against me? Duan Lingtian mentioned how Dong Lin had abused his authority to stop him from serving in the law enforcement hall. Dong Lin did not expect this. Not only did Duan Lingtian not know what was good for him, but he even announced that he had sent a voice transmission to make peace with Duan Lingtian. It was as though he was afraid no one would know about it. Dong Lin was so angry that his face flushed red. His eyes gleamed coldly as he stared at Duan Lingtian. If looks could kill, Duan Lingtian would have been killed by him many times. At the same time, Dong Lin could clearly sense the gazes of everyone in the Fire Remuneration Palace landing on him. Their gazes became a little strange at this moment. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, an uproar broke out in the Fire Remuneration Palace. Elder Dong Lin actually took the initiative to send a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian to make peace with him? Heavens! Is this true? I don't think so. Elder Dong Lin is famous for being arrogant. How could he possibly give in to Duan Lingtian? Based on your words, it seems like you think Duan Lingtian is slandering Elder Dong Lin? That's possible. Naturally, most of the Saint Land disciples did not believe Duan Lingtian's words. They felt Duan Lingtian was deliberately slandering Dong Lin. Dong Lin's heart jolted when he heard the Saint Land disciples' words. He quickly seized the opportunity and looked at Duan Lingtian as he said in a low voice, Duan Lingtian, stop slandering me. As soon as Dong Lin finished speaking, a furious expression appeared on his face. It was as though he had really been slandered by Duan Lingtian. This scene caused many Saint Land disciples to be even more certain that Duan Lingtian was slandering Dong Lin. Naturally, a small group of Saint Land disciples who were calmer felt Duan Lingtian was not slandering Dong Lin. Dong Lin must have sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian to make peace with him. It was not difficult for them to guess the reason Dong Lin took the initiative to make peace with Duan Lingtian. Dong Lin must be worried that he would be embarrassed. After all, he used the excuse that Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root to prevent Duan Lingtian from going to the enforcement hall. If Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root, his excuse would fall apart. At that time, many people would say he was abusing his power for personal gain. As the enforcement hall that was in charge of enforcing the law in the fire worship sect, the rules were very strict. If news of this spread out, even if Dong Lin was the only son of one of the vice hall masters of the enforcement hall, he would still be punished. Moreover, the punishment would not be light. Slandering me? Under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Lingtian could not help but laugh when he heard Dong Lin's words. He made a prompt decision and pricked his finger, forcing out a drop of blood. Dong Lin's expression changed drastically when he saw the drop of blood. Naturally, he could see what Duan Lingtian was trying to do. Duan Lingtian wanted to swear on the lightning penalty oath to prove that he did not threaten him. Duan Lingtian, if you dare to swear on the lightning penalty oath, I, Dong Lin, swear that I won't rest until one of us is dead. Dong Lin said to Duan Lingtian through voice transmission after he took a deep breath. If the soft approach did not work, he would use the hard approach. He would not rest until one of them was dead. Don't tell me we're not going to rest until one of us is dead? Duan Lingtian sneered when he heard Dong Lin's voice transmission. At the same time, he used his blood as a medium and swore on the lightning penalty oath. I, Duan Lingtian, swear that if Dong Lin didn't ask for peace through voice transmission, I'm willing to be killed by the lightning penalty of the tribulation oath, the 99 heavenly tribulation. As soon as Duan Lingtian opened his mouth, he refuted Dong Lin's accusation. It was as though he had given Dong Lin a slap to the face. Dong Lin was even more furious when he saw Duan Lingtian still dared to swear on the lightning penalty oath. He glared at Duan Lingtian as though his eyes would pop out at any moment. Duan Lingtian, you're dead meat. You're dead meat. Dong Lin immediately sent another voice transmission. He roared, and his tone was filled with bone-deep hatred. However, Duan Lingtian completely ignored Dong Lin's threat. Boom, 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 boom. 9 claps of thunder sounded from the sky, shocking everyone in the central square. Is this the lightning penalty oath? It seems like it. I wonder who swore on the lightning penalty oath in the central square. I've been in the Saint Land for more than 10 years, but this is my first time hearing the 99 heavenly tribulation swearing on the lightning penalty oath in the central square. It's my first time hearing it as well. The group of Saint Land disciples in the central square broke into an uproar. They were curious about the person who swore on the tribulation oath. Since the group of Saint Land disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace did not leave the Fire Remuneration Palace, the Saint Land disciples outside were unaware of what was happening in the Fire Remuneration Palace. They did not know the person who swore on the tribulation oath was Duan Lingtian. Unlike the group of Saint Land disciples in the central square, the group of Saint Land disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace had an expression of disbelief on their faces. Nobody expected Duan Lingtian to swear on the lightning penalty oath to prove he did not slander Dong Lin. For a time, the group of Saint Land disciples looked at Dong Lin in a different light. Scram! When Dong Lin sensed the strange gazes that were directed at him from the surroundings, he felt both humiliated and enraged. He instantly glared at Duan Lingtian. At the same time, he shouted at Duan Lingtian in an attempt to get Duan Lingtian to back off and make way for him. However, Duan Lingtian was not surprised by Dong Lin's shout at all. Not only was Duan Lingtian not alarmed, but he also stood still like a mountain. He was like a statue with a domineering aura. It was as though he was a man who could hold out against 10,000 men. Dong Lin could no longer hold back when he saw Duan Lingtian acting so insensibly. The saint origin in his body surged as he emitted a terrifying aura. It was obvious he was ready to make a move. At the same time, the group of Saint Land disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace felt as though the temperature in the surroundings had dropped by a few degrees. As Dong Lin's saint origin surged, he leaned forward and charged toward Duan Lingtian, as though he wanted to knock Duan Lingtian out of the enforcement hall. Faced with Dong Lin, who was charging at him menacingly, Duan Lingtian's sun's saint energy that he had long prepared for this turned into ripples in the air before it transformed into a terrifying whirlpool. As soon as the whirlpool appeared, the heaven and earth spirit energy in the Fire Remuneration Palace was sucked dry. This was the effect of the assist-type divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic that Duan Lingtian had cast. As soon as the elementary devouring tactic was cast, all the Saint Land disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace could sense the heaven and earth spirit energy in the air had disappeared. The peculiar feeling made them feel extremely displeased. Is this the assist-type divine ability that Duan Lingtian has mastered? What a terrifying assist-type divine ability! It actually sucked out all the heaven and earth spirit energy in the Fire Remuneration Palace. No wonder he's able to suppress Wen Yin, who's ranked 9th on the true ranking of Zoroastrianism with his cultivation base at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. His saint energy seems to have undergone a tremendous change in just a blink of an eye. Chapter 2029. When the sun saint energy on Duan Lingtian's body skyrocketed to its limit, The group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace only saw a flash before their eyes. Dong Lin had already arrived in front of Duan Lingtian. He was only a foot away from Duan Lingtian. All of a sudden, at this critical moment, bang! A loud explosion rang in the air as Dong Lin forcefully came to a halt near Duan Lingtian. The sound of his feet landing on the ground was like a clap of thunder, causing the hearts of the people present on the scene to tremble. At the same time, the group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace discovered, with Dong Lin's feet as the center, two cracks that resembled a spider web appeared on the ground. It looked terrifying. Gasp, 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 gasp. The sound of people inhaling sharply rang in the Fire Remuneration Palace. Although the ground in the Fire Remuneration Palace was not as sturdy as the ground in the Death Arena in the Palace of Death, it was still made of rare and hard materials. Ordinary swords and sabers would not be able to leave a mark on it. However, at this moment, two cracks that resembled a spider web had appeared on the ground with Dong Lin's feet. Based on this, one could see how terrifying the force of Dong Lin's feet was. That's almost as soon as Dong Lin forcefully came to a halt. Many sharp-eyed Saint Lan disciples saw a strand of hair falling from Dong Lin's head. A strand of hair fell on Dong Lin's forehead. The cut on the strand of hair was very neat. It was obvious it was cut by a sharp weapon. Duan Lingtian has made his move? Many Saint Lan disciples who had seen Duan Lingtian cast the invisible sword technique could not help but gasp when they saw this. Cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. At this moment, most people also noticed the cold sweat on Dong Lin's forehead. It was dripping down his face like rain. Based on this, one could see how terrified Dong Lin was just a moment ago. Otherwise, he would not have broken out in cold sweat in just a blink of an eye. Duan Lingtian has made his move again? Why didn't I hear the short-lived sword cry this time? Are you stupid? The whistling sound of his sword must have been drowned out by the loud sound of Elder Dong Lin's footsteps landing. I was wondering why Elder Dong Lin would suddenly forcefully stop in front of Duan Lingtian when he was charging forward with such ferocity. So it was because Duan Lingtian had made a move. The strand of hair that fell from his forehead was cut by Duan Lingtian's sword. He was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. It seems that if Duan Lingtian wanted to kill him, he would definitely not be able to survive. Isn't what you're saying nonsense? Although Elder Dong Lin's strength is not bad, he's not even comparable to Wan Yin, who's ranked 9th on the true ranking. If he's not even comparable to Wan Yin, how could he possibly be a match for Duan Lingtian? He knows he's not a match for Duan Lingtian, but he still dares to make a move against Duan Lingtian. I really admire his courage. However, it's fortunate that he managed to stop in time. Otherwise, Duan Lingtian's sword would have cut off his head instead of just a strand of hair. In the eyes of the Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace, Duan Lingtian was merely standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. However, they knew that Duan Lingtian had not moved at all. It was because Duan Lingtian had cast a terrifying sword-wielding technique that caused Dong Lin to forcefully stop in his tracks. Barf! At the same time, under the watchful eyes of the others, Dong Lin broke out in cold sweat. His face turned red before he opened his mouth and threw up a mouthful of blood. He threw up a mouthful of blood, as he threw up a mouthful of blood at Duan Lingtian. Naturally, it did not have any offensive power. Humph! Duan Lingtian grunted coldly when he saw this. Then he raised his hand and flicked his sleeve, causing a piercingly cold wave of wind to sweep out, and it blew the blood clots flying backward before spraying onto the face of Dong Lin, who was caught off guard. Dong Lin's face was instantly covered in a mixture of cold sweat and blood. It continued to flow down his face and dyed his robes red. Although the uniforms of the Zoroastrianism elders and disciples were very different, they were all white robes. Due to this reason, it would be more obvious if they were stained with blood. Dong Lin's face and body were covered in blood at this moment. Upon seeing this, the Fire Remuneration Palace fell into a deathly silence. How pitiful! This was the thought that appeared in everyone's mind at the same time. All of them felt Dong Lin was in a pitiful state. Although they felt Dong Lin was in a pitiful state, they did not sympathize with him at all. After all, Dong Lin was the one who initiated the trouble today, not Duan Lingtian. If Dong Lin did not abuse his authority and find an excuse to stop Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission to serve in the enforcement hall, Duan Lingtian would not have gotten into a conflict with him, and this would not have happened. Duan Lingtian, what are you trying to do? Dong Lin, who was thrown at with blood all over his face under the watchful eyes of the others, instantly felt humiliated. He was so embarrassed that he flew into a rage. At the same time, he asked Duan Lingtian coldly. His eyes were burning. If the flames in his eyes could hurt, Duan Lingtian would have been burned to death by him. What am I trying to do? When Duan Lingtian heard Dong Lin's words, he was amused. Elder Dong Lin, what do you think I'm trying to do? I don't object to you leaving the Fire Remuneration Palace. When Duan Lingtian reached this part of his sentence, his tone suddenly changed. His calm voice turned colder as he said, however, before you leave today, you have to make a statement about whether I can accept the assignment from the enforcement hall or not. Didn't you say I have a yellow innate spiritual root, so I'm not qualified to accept the mission to serve in the enforcement hall? Now that I've proven I have a blue innate spiritual root, am I qualified to serve in the enforcement hall? Duan Lingtian asked Dong Lin again after he finished speaking. When Dong Lin heard Duan Lingtian's words, he was so angry that he almost threw up blood. To be honest, whether Duan Lingtian could accept the mission to serve in the enforcement hall or not was a trivial matter to him. In fact, he had even sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian to plead for peace and promised he would recommend Duan Lingtian to serve in the enforcement hall. However, he did not expect Duan Lingtian would not accept his kindness. Instead, Duan Lingtian forced him to change his mind in front of so many people. Duan Lingtian wanted to slap him in the face. What? Elder Dong Lin, do you think there's something wrong with the spiritual pearl in my hand? When Duan Lingtian saw Dong Lin remain silent for a long time, he looked at the spiritual pearl in his hand and asked again in a calm tone, Elder Dong Lin, if you think there's something wrong with this spiritual pearl, you can take out the spiritual pearl you always carry with you for me to test. I believe as an elder of the enforcement hall, you must have a spiritual pearl that can test one's innate spiritual root, right? Although Duan Lingtian's tone was calm, his words were like thunder in Dong Lin's ears. In his opinion, Duan Lingtian was forcing him to a dead end. If he was not certain Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root earlier, he was certain Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root after he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root was 100% blue. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Duan Lingtian to be so overbearing. Moreover, if I'm not mistaken, Elder Dong Lin, you either came out of closed-door cultivation recently or just came back from outside. Am I right? Duan Lingtian was not angry when he saw Dong Lin was still ignoring him. Instead, he changed the topic and asked Dong Lin another question. How did you know? At this moment, even Dong Lin was stunned by Duan Lingtian. He did not expect Duan Lingtian would be able to guess he had just come back from outside. If you didn't come out of closed-door cultivation recently, or just came back from outside, it's impossible that you don't know I possess a blue innate spiritual root. In the face of Dong Lin's question, Duan Lingtian patiently replied, That's right. Perhaps most people in Zoroastrianism think I only possess a yellow innate spiritual root. However, apart from the true disciples on duty, I'm afraid at least 90% of the people in the St. Land's Enforcement Hall know that I possess a blue innate spiritual root. Those who don't know about it have either just come out of closed-door cultivation or just come back from outside. When Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the atmosphere in the Fire Remuneration Palace fell silent again. Everyone in the enforcement hall knows that he possesses a blue innate spiritual root. Dong Lin's expression turned grave when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. At the same time, he instinctively turned to look at Chen Peng, who was standing in the distance. Horror dawned on Chen Peng when he saw the ferocious gleam in his eyes. Senior brother Dong Lin, don't listen to him. He's just spouting nonsense. Chen Peng hastily said, My master has tested his innate spiritual root twice, but both times, he only has a yellow innate spiritual root. There's no mistake about this. There's no mistake. As soon as Chen Peng finished speaking, Duan Lingtian looked at Chen Peng and asked, Chen Peng, if I'm not mistaken, you must have just come out of closed-door cultivation or just come back from outside. That's why you didn't ask your master before you came looking for trouble with me, right? Who's looking for trouble with you? Don't slander me. Chun Pang quickly refuted Duan Lingtian's words. An ominous feeling rose in his heart. Duan Lingtian was right. He had just come out of closed-door cultivation. Apart from that, he did not look for his master before he asked Dong Lin to look for trouble with Duan Lingtian. Originally, he planned to look for his master after this matter disgusted Duan Lingtian. That way, he would be able to share Duan Lingtian's predicament with his master at the right time and make his master happy. Naturally, Chun Pang was unaware of this. Chapter 2030. Although Chun Pang had said Duan Lingtian was slandering him, his eyes were filled with doubt. However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a hint of shock and disbelief. His gaze had betrayed him. I remember now. Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out in the Fire Remuneration Palace. It was a Holy Land disciple who seemed to have thought of something and cried out loudly. Most of the people present on the scene could not help but look at the Saint Land disciple. The Saint Land disciple was slightly nervous when he saw everyone's attention. However, he said in a timely manner, "Do all of you remember Duan Lingtian was punished by the enforcement hall after he killed Yuan Hong and his younger brother, Yuan Kuang? At that time, we thought the enforcement hall had given Duan Lingtian a chance because he had a powerful background. However, it seems like the enforcement hall had already known that Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root at that time." The Holy Land's disciple immediately recounted everything that had just occurred to him, without missing a single detail. The Fire Remuneration Palace fell into a dead silence again. There's such a thing? Dong Lin's eyes widened, and his expression turned grave. Since he had just returned a few days ago, he was unaware that Duan Lingtian had been punished by the enforcement hall. Otherwise, he would not have looked for trouble with Duan Lingtian so impulsively. How could someone who was punished by the enforcement hall be an ordinary person? As an elder of the law enforcement hall, he was naturally well aware of this. Although Chun Pang was his friend, Chun Pang was only his follower. However, in his eyes, Chun Pang was just a follower from the beginning. Due to his age, he left the ranks of the true disciples and became a bronze flame elder. From that time onward, Chun Pang no longer followed him around. If he had known earlier that Duan Lingtian was a person who had been blackmailed by the enforcement hall, he would not have impulsively come looking for trouble with Duan Lingtian even if Chun Pang was his brother, let alone Chun Pang who was only his follower in the past. Furthermore, he was abusing his power to cause trouble for the Duan Lingtian. If this matter was not handled properly, even if he was an elder of the law enforcement hall and the only son of one of the deputy hall masters of the law enforcement hall, it would be difficult for him to escape a heavy punishment. Now that you mention it, I remember it too. It seems that there is indeed such a thing. It seems like the enforcement hall found out that Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root that Duan Lingtian is able to enjoy the benefits of Zoroastrianism. It seems like the rumor isn't true. Duan Lingtian doesn't have a yellow innate spiritual root, but a blue innate spiritual root. At the same time, realization dawned on the group of Saint Land disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace. As it turned out, the enforcement hall had long known that Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Dong Lin, the elder of the law enforcement hall, was the only one who was kept in the dark. Elder Dong Lin is really unlucky. Based on Duan Lingtian's words, Elder Dong Lin must have only come out of closed-door cultivation a few days ago or just returned from outside. Isn't it obvious? Otherwise, Elder Dong Lin wouldn't have thought that Duan Lingtian only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root. He doesn't know Duan Lingtian at all. The reason he made things difficult for Duan Lingtian today is all because of Chun Pang. He was tricked by Chun Pang. As the Saint Land's disciples discussed among themselves, many of them shifted their gazes to Chun Pang, causing him to become the center of attention for the time being. Chun Pang's face turned pale when he heard these words. What did they mean by he tricked Dong Lin? Before today, just like Dong Lin, he did not know Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. When Chun Pang saw Dong Lin looking at him coldly again, he felt like killing himself. Naturally, He knew Dong Lin would most likely ignore him after today, since Dong Lin would definitely think he was the one who tricked him. For a moment, Chun Pang felt very regretful. Why did he have to be so rash? The atmosphere in the Fire Remuneration Palace was very lively. At this moment, the group of Saint Lan disciples was certain of something. Duan Lingtian indeed possessed a blue innate spiritual root. This explained why the enforcement hall would kill Duan Lingtian previously. It was because he possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Moreover, the person he killed was a Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple who did not have a high innate talent and was not important to Zoroastrianism. I can't believe Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root. It seems like those people who said his cultivation base would stop at the peak of the exemplary saint stage are laughable. It's indeed laughable. As long as a martial Tao genius with a blue innate spiritual root doesn't die prematurely or neglect his cultivation, he'll definitely be able to break through to the saint celestial stage. It's hard to imagine how terrifying Duan Lingtian's combat strength will be when his cultivation base breaks through to the saint celestial stage. It'll definitely be terrifying. His current cultivation base seems to be at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, right? It shouldn't be. Earlier, before he cast his assist-type divine ability to strengthen his saint energy, I sensed the aura of his saint energy was at the early quintessential saint stage. Does this mean he has already broken through to the early quintessential saint stage? In the Fire Remuneration Palace, the group of Saint Lan disciples discussed among themselves. They had also confirmed Duan Lingtian's current cultivation base was at the early quintessential saint stage. Even then, they were still amazed by Duan Lingtian's current combat strength. Although his cultivation base is at the early quintessential saint stage, his combat strength is definitely at the top of the second form of the saint celestial stage. I think so too. Just the sword technique he cast with his sword technique alone is enough for him to be ranked on the Supreme Saint ranking. I can't believe there's another prodigy among the younger generation of Zoroastrianism who's ranked on the Supreme Saint ranking so quickly. In Zoroastrianism, once a true disciple from the younger generation was ranked on the Supreme Saint ranking, it was equivalent to bringing glory to Zoroastrianism. Such a person would be widely acknowledged as a prodigy among Zoroastrianism. For example, those who were ranked in the top 7 of the true ranking, including Ganru Yin, were also known as prodigies among Zoroastrianism because they were ranked on the Supreme Saint ranking. In Zoroastrianism, there were 7 prodigies who were known as the 7 Great Prodigies. The 7 Great Prodigies of Zoroastrianism were famous even in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint Land. Each of them was widely acknowledged as the best among the younger generation in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint Land. From today onward, there's going to be another prodigy among Zoroastrianism. In the future, there won't be only 7 prodigies among Zoroastrianism. There will be 8 of them. It won't be long before the 8 great prodigies of Zoroastrianism become famous in the Tao Martial Saint Land. Many Saint Lan disciples exclaimed, "Prodigy? 8 great prodigies?" Upon hearing the Saint Lan disciples' words, Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow. However, his expression remained calm. Ker's twin sister, Ganru Yin, is also a prodigy among Zoroastrianism? Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly. Duan Lingtian still remembered. When he met Ganru Yin for the first time, he was indeed shocked by the strength Ganru Yin had displayed. Even the 5-clawed golden dragon, Diju, did not dare to even fart in front of her. In fact, Diju's cultivation base was already at the peak of the Divine Saint stage at that time. However, since his strength had already caught up to Ganru Yin to a certain extent, he was no longer as shocked as before. Soon after, Duan Lingtian shifted his gaze to Dong Lin and said indifferently, "Elder Dong Lin, shouldn't you give me an answer now that things have come to this?" As soon as Duan Lingtian looked at Dong Lin, a scene that surprised him appeared. From this moment onward, Duan Lingtian will no longer be restricted from accepting missions from true disciples in the enforcement hall. As soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Dong Lin no longer dawdled and said, "You're right." His tone was clear and straightforward. It made Duan Lingtian wonder if he was possessed by a soul. Moreover, however, Dong Lin did not finish his sentence. He looked at Duan Lingtian and bowed to Duan Lingtian in front of everyone in the Fire Remuneration Palace. Duan Lingtian, I didn't know you possess a blue innate spiritual root, so I restricted you from accepting missions from the Enforcement Hall. Now that I've learned you possess a blue innate spiritual root, I have to sincerely apologize to you. Dong Lin's apology caused the Fire Remuneration Palace to fall into a dead silence. Dong Lin's actions surprised everyone. This Dong Lin is really flexible. Upon seeing this, Duan Lingtian was not happy at all. Instead, his expression turned grave as a hint of dread appeared in his eyes. Although Dong Lin seems to be apologizing to me, isn't he trying to redeem himself? Now that he's apologizing, he won't be punished severely even if the Enforcement Hall decides to pursue this matter. Duan Lingtian knew this very well. After apologizing, Dong Lin did not wait for the people in the Fire Remuneration Palace to return to their senses before he walked out of the Fire Remuneration Palace. This time, Duan Lingtian did not stop Dong Lin since he had already achieved his goal. He could now accept the mission from the Enforcement Hall. This meant that Dong Lin would not be able to accept it. He might be able to meet Kerr and her daughter soon, outside the Fire Remuneration Palace. As soon as Dong Lin walked out of the Fire Remuneration Palace's entrance, his calm expression changed drastically. His eyes gleamed coldly. Endless hatred rose in his heart. Chapter 2031. After Dong Lin apologized to Duan Lingtian and left, the Fire Remuneration Palace fell silent. Dong Lin was actually forced to apologize to Duan Lingtian. Moreover, he no longer restricted Duan Lingtian from accepting the Enforcement Hall's missions. Duan Lingtian is too amazing, right? Although I knew Elder Dong Lin's restrictions on Duan Lingtian are useless after he revealed his blue innate spiritual root, I didn't expect Elder Dong Lin would say he's no longer restricting Duan Lingtian. Isn't he slapping his own face? It's not just slapping his own face. Didn't you see that Elder Dong Lin even took the initiative to apologize to Duan Lingtian? From today onward, among the 170 over true disciples, I'll only submit to senior brother Duan Lingtian. That's right. Even the person who's ranked first on the true ranking might not dare to be so rude to Elder Dong Lin. The group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace finally regained their senses. An expression of shock could be seen on their faces as they sighed emotionally. Many of them even added the words senior brother when they mentioned Duan Lingtian. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, the strong were revered. Duan Lingtian's actions had perfectly illustrated the concept of a powerhouse. Many Saint Lan disciples present on the scene were convinced by him. Just as the group of Holy Land disciples was whispering to each other, a voice suddenly rang out. Trying to leave? Did I allow you to leave? Duan Lingtian's indifferent voice suddenly sounded. It immediately attracted the attention of the group of Saint Lan disciples in the Fire Remuneration Palace. The group of Saint Lan disciples saw Dong Lin leaving. After Dong Lin left, Chen Peng, who was originally following Dong Lin, had unknowingly snuck to the entrance of the Fire Remuneration Palace. It was obvious he wanted to leave. However, before he could leave, he was stopped by Duan Lingtian. History repeated itself again. Duan Lingtian, what do you want? Senior brother Dong Lin no longer restricts you from accepting missions from the Law Enforcement Hall. You must know when to stop. After being stopped by Duan Lingtian, Chun Peng's face alternated between green and white. However, in the end, he straightened his back and spoke in an overbearing manner. In his opinion, even if he was afraid of Duan Lingtian from the bottom of his heart, he couldn't lose to Duan Lingtian in terms of aura. Know when to stop? Hearing Chun Peng's words, Duan Lingtian immediately burst into laughter as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. His laughter spread throughout the entire Fire Remuneration Palace. After a while, Duan Lingtian stopped laughing. When he looked at Chun Peng again, his eyes were as cold as knives. Are you joking? You. Don't mess around. Sensing the murderous aura emanating from Duan Lingtian, Chun Peng's expression changed drastically. His straight back also bent down at this moment. Compared to the overbearing Chun Peng earlier, it was as though he was a completely different person. If you dare to move in the next 3 breaths, I'll make sure you suffer a fate worse than death. Duan Lingtian said coldly when Chun Ping's expression changed drastically. At the same time, he took a step forward and was only a foot away from Chun Ping. In the next instant, under everyone's watchful eyes, Duan Lingtian raised his right hand and swung it out at lightning speed. Slap, 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 slap. As Duan Lingtian swung his right hand left and right, the crisp sound of slapping rang in the air one after another. It was as though the sound of firecrackers did not stop. Duan Lingtian's hand was too fast. In just a breath's time, Chun Ping's face was already swollen like a pig's head. Upon seeing this, the group of Saint Lan disciples present on the scene could not help but gasp. Some of them even reached out to touch their own faces. At this moment, although Duan Lingtian's hand did not land on their faces, they could imagine how much pain Chun Ping's face was in. However, even if his face was swollen like a pig's head, Chun Ping did not dare to move at all. This was because Duan Lingtian had already said if he dared to move in the next 3 breaths, he would make sure he suffered a fate worse than death. Naturally, he did not dare to doubt Duan Lingtian's words. Therefore, even if both sides of his face were swollen and numb from being slapped by Duan Lingtian, Chun Ping did not dare to move in the next 3 breaths. However, there was a burning anger in the depths of his eyes. This was the first time in his life that he had been humiliated like this. Slap, 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 slap. The crisp sound of slapping continued. After 2 breaths, a few of Chun Ping's teeth were broken. Fresh blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. After the span of 3 breaths, Duan Lingtian finally stopped. At this moment, not only was Chun Ping's face swollen like a pig's head, but blood was also flowing out of all 7 of his orifices. If there's a next time, I'll make sure you suffer a fate worse than death. After stopping, Duan Lingtian glanced at Chun Ping coldly before he said in a low voice, "Get lost. Get lost." As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Chun Ping was so frightened that he immediately moved aside to make way for Duan Lingtian. After Chun Ping moved aside, Duan Lingtian also stepped forward. The group of Saint Lan disciples consciously made way for him as he walked to the counter where he had been earlier. "Elder, can I accept the mission now?" "Yes, of course." At this moment, the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder behind the counter no longer dared to stop Duan Lingtian from accepting the assignment to serve in the enforcement hall. After he hurriedly responded, he began to process the procedures for Duan Lingtian in a fluster. Even Dong Lin, who had restricted Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission from the enforcement hall, had given in. Naturally, the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder could no longer continue to make things difficult for Duan Lingtian. In terms of strength, he might not be a match for Dong Lin. In terms of status and background, he could not compare to Dong Lin at all. If he continued to make things difficult for Duan Lingtian, he would only be asking for trouble. When Chun Ping saw Duan Lingtian ignoring him after accepting the mission, he left the Fire Remuneration Palace with a dejected expression under the watchful eyes of many Saint Lan disciples. After he left the Fire Remuneration Palace, the anger in the depths of his eyes could be seen clearly. "Duan Lingtian, Duan Lingtian, I won't let you go. I won't let you go." Chun Ping roared in his heart as the flames of hatred burned fiercely. At this moment, he seemed to have forgotten that it was impossible for him to catch up to Duan Lingtian with his innate talent and strength. "Duan Lingtian, bring this certificate to the enforcement hall tomorrow, and you'll be able to complete the handover with the true disciple on duty in the enforcement hall. You'll be on duty in the enforcement hall for the next month. You'll have to stay in the enforcement hall and are not allowed to leave without permission." In the Fire Remuneration Palace, one of the Fire Remuneration Palace's elders behind the counter reminded Duan Lingtian after he had completed the procedures for him. At the same time, he passed the certificate in his hand to Duan Lingtian. "Thank you, elder." After receiving the certificate and thanking the elder, Duan Lingtian left the Fire Remuneration Palace without looking back. After Duan Lingtian left, the Fire Remuneration Palace that had been quiet since Duan Lingtian had accepted the assignment became lively again. The group of Saint Lan disciples could not help but show their respect for Duan Lingtian when they spoke. After Duan Lingtian left the Fire Remuneration Palace, News of what happened in the Fire Remuneration Palace spread like wildfire among the Saint Lan disciples who were present on the scene. Duan Lingtian caused trouble again? I heard so. Moreover, the person he offended this time is Elder Dong Lin from the Enforcement Hall, who has a powerful background. Dong Lin? Isn't that the only son of Vice Hall Master Dong from the Enforcement Hall? That's him. It seems like he didn't take the initiative to cause trouble this time. It's Elder Dong Lin from the Enforcement Hall who used his yellow innate spiritual root to restrict him from accepting assignments in the Enforcement Hall. I heard about it as well. It's said that Duan Lingtian publicly revealed his blue innate spiritual root and slapped Elder Dong Lin in the face. However, I really didn't expect the rumors to be false. As it turns out, Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root. In terms of martial Dao innate talent, he possesses a blue innate spiritual root. In terms of divine ability innate talent, he has mastered 4 high-grade divine abilities. Duan Lingtian is really heaven-defying. Soon after, most of the people in the Saint Land of Zoroastrianism learned that Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. The entire Saint Land of Zoroastrianism was shocked by this news. In fact, in the past, everyone thought Duan Lingtian's divine ability and innate talent were heaven-defying. They even thought the heavens were jealous of him and only gave him a yellow innate spiritual root. However, they finally found out the rumor that Duan Lingtian possessed a yellow innate spiritual root was just a rumor. Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Previously, Duan Lingtian had killed Yuan Hong, the grand disciple of the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder Lian, and his younger brother, Yuan Kuang. He was spared the death penalty because he possessed a blue innate spiritual root. He was only punished to serve in the 4 Symbol Sanctum's first mine for 10 years. Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not even spend a month in the 4 Symbol Sanctum's first mine before he was released. This was because he was qualified to enter the Saint Land and become a Saint Land disciple at that time. The news of Duan Lingtian possessing a blue innate spiritual root quickly spread to the other 4 Symbol Sanctums. It caused a commotion in the 4 Symbol Sanctums. Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root? How's that possible? Many of the 4 Symbol Sanctum's disciples had similar reactions when they heard the news. All of them felt it was impossible. After all, the news of Duan Lingtian possessing a yellow innate spiritual root was spread from the Black Turtle Sanctum, one of the 4 Symbol Sanctums. It was very true. It seems like senior brother Duan Lingtian knows how to conceal the grade of his innate spiritual root. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been tested to possess a yellow innate spiritual root. Many Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples in the Black Turtle Sanctum said. Chapter 2032. The Enforcement Hall was located in the mountain range to the north of the Saint Island in the Dao Martial Saint Land. It was rare for people to come here. The Enforcement Hall was divided into 3 halls: the Main Hall, the Punishment Hall, and the Prison Hall. Amongst them, the functions of the Main Hall were all-encompassing, including recording files, accepting complaints, and managing the entire law enforcement hall, etc. As its name suggested, the Punishment Hall was where the Enforcement Hall punished the Zoroastrianism elders and disciples who had violated the sex rules. Whether it was a life sentence or a death sentence, the punishment would be carried out here. Previously, Wei He, the first direct disciple of the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder, Lian, had slandered the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder for abusing his power for personal gain and indirectly blaspheming the Enforcement Hall. Apart from that, the Punishment Hall had all kinds of terrifying torture tools. They were much more ridiculous than ordinary torture tools. Many of them could make one wish for death. As for the Prison Hall, it was where the Zoroastrianism elders and disciples who had violated the sex rules were imprisoned. Those who were imprisoned were those who had committed serious crimes. However, since their crimes required the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism to make the final judgment, they were temporarily imprisoned here as well. Kerr and Duan Lingtian's daughter, Duan Siling, and Kerr's twin sister, Gan Ru Yin, were imprisoned here. At this moment, a figure hurried over to the Enforcement Hall's main hall. Elder Dong Lin. The few Enforcement Hall's elders who had just walked out of the main hall took the initiative to greet him with a smile when they saw him. The person was none other than Dong Lin, who had just returned from the Fire Remuneration Palace in the central square. Before he returned, Dong Lin had gone to other places to inquire about Duan Lingtian. He had also gained a deeper understanding of what had happened to Duan Lingtian after he came to the Zoroastrianism. After learning more about Duan Lingtian, he had rushed back to the enforcement hall. He wanted to read the records about Duan Lingtian in the law enforcement hall. At this moment, the news of Elder Dong Lin from the enforcement hall suffering a setback in the Fire Remuneration Palace in the central square had already spread to the enforcement hall. Of course, due to the issue of time, the news had yet to reach the main hall of the enforcement hall. Therefore, the few law enforcement hall elders who had left the main hall had yet to receive the news. As a result, they behaved very normally when facing Dong Lin. Furthermore, although Dong Lin was only a bronze flame elder of the law enforcement hall like them, his father was the vice hall master of the law enforcement hall. Thus, when they met Dong Lin, although they did not flatter him, they were still very courteous. After all, Dong Lin's father was their superior. Whoosh! However, Dong Lin ignored the greetings of the few law enforcement hall's elders. He did not slow down at all as he stepped on the ground and hurriedly entered the law enforcement hall's main hall. What's wrong with Elder Dong Lin? What's so urgent? That's right. In the past, when we greeted him, even if he didn't greet us back, he would at least look at us and nod at us. Today's situation doesn't seem right. Forget it. This spoiled brat's temper has always been unpredictable. Let's just ignore him. Based on the words of the few law enforcement hall's elders, it seemed like they did not have a good impression of Dong Lin. In fact, this was indeed the case. The reason they were polite to Dong Lin was due to his extraordinary background. Moreover, his father was their superior. Have the few of you heard? Elder Dong Lin from our enforcement hall is apologizing to a true disciple in the Fire Remuneration Palace in the central square. After the few law enforcement hall's elders flew out for a distance, another law enforcement hall's elder came up to them and asked excitedly. This law enforcement hall's elder was also a bronze flame elder. Therefore, the few of them recognized him. What? Elder Dong Lin apologizing to a true disciple? You must be joking. With Elder Dong Lin's temper, it's fine if others don't apologize to him, but he's apologizing to someone? Moreover, he's apologizing to a true disciple? I don't believe it. When the few law enforcement hall's elders who had just left the main hall heard the words of the other law enforcement hall's elder, they looked at each other and shook their heads to express their disbelief. You have no choice but to believe this because you'll hear about it soon enough. The law enforcement hall's elder shook his head and said, What's going on? Tell us clearly. The few law enforcement hall's elders' curiosity was piqued as they asked one after another, Hee, this is what happened. Following that, the law enforcement hall's elder who had just arrived told them everything he had heard. Fire Remuneration Palace, Duan Lingtian, Dong Lin, and the mission issued by the law enforcement hall. It mainly revolved around these few points. Dong Lin actually abused his authority to prevent Duan Lingtian from accepting the mission issued by the law enforcement hall? Isn't he afraid Lord Hall Master will blame him? That's right. Although his father is Lord Vice Hall Master, if Lord Hall Master is angry, even Lord Vice Hall Master won't be able to protect him. He's very smart. He found an excuse in time. In that case, Lord Hall Master might not blame him even if he finds out. Unfortunately, his excuse was quickly destroyed by Duan Lingtian. He said that Duan Lingtian only has a yellow innate spiritual root, but Duan Lingtian directly revealed his blue innate spiritual root and slapped him in the face. No wonder his expression was so unsightly earlier. As it turns out, he was humiliated by the Fire Remuneration Palace. When the few law enforcement hall's elders recalled Dong Lin who had ignored them earlier, they began to chime in one after another. However, I really didn't expect Duan Lingtian to not only have a heaven-defying innate talent in divine abilities, but his innate talent in martial Tao is also so high. The eighth prodigy of Zoroastrianism is so strong that he's probably ranked in the top 5 among the 8 great prodigies. That Duan Lingtian really surprises me in every way. That's right. Ever since he came to Zoroastrianism, the things he has done have always been surprising. This time, He even slapped the face of our law enforcement hall's second-generation heir. He's really fearless. Based on this news, will he come to the law enforcement hall tomorrow? I finally have a chance to meet this prodigy who has been very popular in Zoroastrianism recently. I'm looking forward to meeting him as well. When the law enforcement hall's elders mentioned Duan Lingtian, a hint of curiosity could be seen in their eyes. They were curious about how Duan Lingtian looked like and who he was. How dare he cause so much trouble in Zoroastrianism? In the main hall of the law enforcement hall, as soon as Dong Lin entered, he went straight to the side hall where the dossiers were kept. The dossiers were very important to the law enforcement hall. For this reason, a Silver Flame Elder would usually be on duty in the side hall where the dossiers were kept. Elder Dong Lin? Today, the person on duty in the side hall where the dossiers were kept was a middle-aged Silver Flame Elder. When he saw Dong Lin rushing in, he was stunned. At the same time, a puzzled expression appeared on his face. I want to see the dossiers about the death of Saint Lan's Elder Wei He, Dong Lin said in a commanding tone after he rushed in. It was as though he had forgotten that the person on duty in the side hall was a Silver Flame Elder. As expected, the Silver Flame Elder's expression turned grave when he heard Dong Lin's tone. He said coldly, "Elder Dong Lin, I don't remember where I put the dossiers that you're looking for. You should look for them yourself." Although Dong Lin's father was the vice hall master of the law enforcement hall, he was still a Silver Flame Elder. However, he was a Silver Flame Elder after all, and he had his own dignity. Naturally, he would not allow Dong Lin, a Bronze Flame Elder, to step on his head. Even if he would offend the vice hall master of the law enforcement hall, he was not willing to give up his dignity. "Elder Lin Tong, I'm sorry. I was too impatient. Please forgive me for offending you earlier." When Dong Lin heard the Silver Flame Elder's words, he finally realized the person before him was a Silver Flame Elder. Although he was displeased, he still took the initiative to apologize. What a joke. The dossiers in the side hall of the law enforcement hall were passed down through the generations of Zoroastrianism. If he were to look through them himself, he might not even be able to find the dossiers he was looking for even if he spent 3 days and 3 nights. In order to see the dossiers as soon as possible, he apologized on the surface. However, in his heart, he hated Lin Tong, the Silver Flame Elder before him. When Lin Tong saw Dong Lin apologizing, his expression softened immediately. At the same time, he took out the dossiers about the death of Saint Lan's Elder Wei He and passed them to Dong Lin. "Elder Lin Tong, please take out the dossiers about the Duan Lingtian killing Yuan Hong and Yuan Kuang from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. I'd like to take a look." Dong Lin forced a smile on his face as he said to Lin Tong. It was apparent Lin Tong was someone who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. When he saw how polite Dong Lin was, he immediately helped him find the dossiers he was looking for. Then, Dong Lin opened 2 dossiers. From the dossiers, he saw that Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Dong Lin's expression darkened immediately. As it turned out, the law enforcement hall had long recorded that Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Unfortunately, he had just returned from outside, so he did not have the time to look into it. "I'm really screwed over by Chin Peng this time. I hope Lord Hall Master won't hold me responsible for this since I took the initiative to apologize to Duan Lingtian." Dong Lin prayed inwardly when he thought of this. Naturally, Duan Lingtian was unaware of what had happened in the law enforcement hall. After he left the Fire Remuneration Palace in the Central Square, he returned to his residence. Chapter 2033. Junior Brother Ling Tian. A voice suddenly resonated from outside. It instantly alerted Duan Ling Tian, who was not in the mood to cultivate. He immediately left the 7 Treasures exquisite pagoda and walked out of his room. He could tell it was Lu Yun's voice. "Senior Brother Lu Yun, is there anything you need from me?" Duan Ling Tian asked with a smile as he rose into the air and arrived in front of Lu Yun. As the saying went, a person is in high spirits when there's a joyous occasion. The current Duan Lingtian gave Lu Yun a completely different feeling compared to before. It was as though he was a completely different person. His entire body exuded vitality. "Junior Brother Lingtian, I know you're going to the Fire Remuneration Palace tomorrow. However, when you're there, you must be careful of Dong Lin." Unlike Duan Lingtian, who was full of smiles, Lu Yun's expression was extremely solemn as he warned Duan Lingtian. "I'm sure you already know about Dong Lin's background. You know he's the only son of one of the Vice Hall Masters of the Enforcement Hall. However, I'm afraid you still don't know that the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall is famous for being ruthless. Back then, his wife was accidentally injured by one of the Zhuangzi Buddhism's elders. He immediately charged into the Zhuangzi Buddhism and killed the Zhuangzi Buddhism's elder. At that time, the powerhouses from the Zhuangzi Buddhism who besieged him were also severely injured by him. He was also on the verge of death. At that time, if Lord's sect leader did not make a move in time, he would have died. He went to the Black Kshetra sect because he was certain his wife wouldn't be able to survive. He was prepared to die. When Lu Yun reached this point, he paused for a moment before he continued to say, later on, he discovered his wife who was severely injured and on the verge of death was pregnant. His wife passed away after giving birth to Dong Lin. Since then, Dong Lin has become his new source of sustenance. It can be said that Dong Lin is the most important person in his heart in this world. If Dong Lin finds out that you have rashly humiliated him in front of everyone, I'm afraid that he will not let this matter rest." Lu Yun finished speaking in one breath. "Don't tell me that he can still lay a hand on me in Zoroastrianism?" Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows and asked. "He won't go so far as to attack you in the Zoroastrianism. After all, he is the Vice Hall leader of the Law Enforcement Hall. Considering the kindness of the hierarch, he won't dare to act rashly. However, if the Zoroastrianism is involved, everything will be different." Lu Yun shook his head and continued, "I came here today mainly to remind you that no matter how great the conflict between you and Dong Lin is, it's best that you don't think of killing him. Once you kill him, the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall will no longer have any misgivings. He could even kill you in Zoroastrianism. For the sake of his son, he'll definitely risk his life." Lu Yun warned Duan Lingtian with a solemn expression on his face. "Thank you for your reminder, Senior Brother Lu Yun." Duan Lingtian nodded. At the same time, he was slightly fearful of Dong Lin's father, the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. From Lu Yun's words, he could tell that Dong Lin was a ruthless person. For the sake of his wife, he would kill his way into Zhuangzi Buddhism alone. This was not something that anyone could do. Furthermore, his wife had passed away, and she had left him with a son. It was not hard to imagine. One could imagine how important his son was to him. If his son died, he would definitely go crazy. However, Duan Lingtian was only fearful. After all, he did not have the intention to kill Dong Lin for the time being. Moreover, even if he challenged Dong Lin to a death duel, Dong Lin might not even bother about it. Due to this reason, he was not worried that the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall would personally make a move on him. As for what will happen after I leave Zoroastrianism, why would I need to wait for him or the people he sends to make a move on me after I leave Zoroastrianism? The Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder, Lian, won't let me go so easily. Duan Lingtian was well aware of this as well. For this reason, he was not worried that Dong Lin's father would make a move on him after he left Zoroastrianism. "Junior Brother Lingtian, you'll be going to the Law Enforcement Hall tomorrow. If it's possible, try not to have any conflict with Dong Lin when you go to the Law Enforcement Hall. Otherwise, even if Dong Lin's father doesn't personally teach you a lesson, he'll definitely instruct the Silver Flame Elder to do so." Lu Yun reminded Duan Lingtian. Once he went to the Law Enforcement Hall, he would be in the Dong father and son's territory. For this reason, he could not help but worry about Duan Lingtian. "Don't worry, I know what to do." Duan Lingtian nodded. He did not have any enmity with Dong Lin. As long as Dong Lin did not provoke him, he could not be bothered with him. After all, he did not suffer any losses today. "Junior Brother Lingtian, is your innate spiritual root really a blue innate spiritual root?" Lu Yun sighed in relief when he saw Duan Lingtian had taken his words seriously. However, he seemed to have recalled something as he stared at Duan Lingtian. He had heard about what had happened today. Not only did he know that Duan Lingtian and Dong Lin were at odds, but he also knew that Duan Lingtian had given Dong Lin a tight slap. The slap was due to the blue innate spiritual root that Duan Lingtian had shown. Although he had heard that Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root, he still found it hard to believe. After all, the news of Duan Lingtian possessing a yellow innate spiritual root had spread far and wide. For this reason, he suddenly asked Duan Lingtian this question.
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile. Then, why was your innate spiritual root tested twice in the Black Turtle Sanctum, one of the 4 symbol sanctums? When Duan Lingtian heard Lu Yun's question, he realized Lu Yun was going to get to the bottom of this. He was already prepared for this. I know a secret tactic that can conceal my innate spiritual root. At that time, I was only found to possess a yellow innate spiritual root because I had cast that secret tactic. Duan Lingtian blurted out. This was the excuse he had come up with a long time ago. Apart from that, he believed most people thought the same as well. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain the huge difference in his innate spiritual root. I see. Although Lu Yun had already guessed this, it was a different feeling when he heard it from Duan Lingtian. At the same time, his heart was filled with shock. Then, does this mean the blue innate spiritual root you're displaying now might not be your true innate spiritual root, junior brother Lingtian? Lu Yun suddenly thought of this and could not help but ask. That was right. Since Duan Lingtian could conceal his innate spiritual root as a yellow innate spiritual root, it was possible that the blue innate spiritual root he was displaying now was not his true innate spiritual root. As soon as Lu Yun finished speaking, he stared at Duan Lingtian intensely, as though he was trying to figure out something from Duan Lingtian's expression. At this moment, Duan Lingtian smiled mysteriously in a timely manner. It was his mysterious smile that confirmed Lu Yun's suspicions. Junior brother Lingtian's innate spiritual root might be an indigo innate spiritual root. The moment Lu Yun thought of this, his heartbeat quickened. It took him a long time to calm down. Naturally, the reason Duan Lingtian had a mysterious smile on his face was because he had done so intentionally. The reason he did this was to mislead Lu Yun into thinking that he was still holding back when he revealed his blue innate spiritual root. After all, his innate spiritual root could be improved through the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. As long as he devoured enough innate spiritual roots, it would only be a matter of time before his innate spiritual root transformed into an indigo or violet innate spiritual root. Under such circumstances, it was better for him to lay the groundwork first. In this way, Lu Yun would not be surprised even if he revealed a higher grade innate spiritual root in the future. Junior brother Lingtian, I've already achieved my purpose of looking for you. I won't disturb your cultivation any longer. When Lu Yun saw the mysterious smile on Duan Lingtian's face, he did not continue to ask. He bade farewell and prepared to leave. In his opinion, Duan Lingtian did not say anything. At this moment, there was no need for him to ask any further. The mysterious smile on Duan Lingtian's face had already told him everything. For this reason, Lu Yun was still in a state of shock when he left. He could not calm down even after a long time. I can't believe junior brother Lingtian not only has a heaven-defying innate talent and divine ability, but his innate talent in martial Tao is also heaven-defying. As long as he's given enough time, he'll surpass the second and first place on the true ranking. Lu Yun was very certain about this. Junior brother Lingtian is the most outstanding prodigy in Zoroastrianism. It's not an exaggeration to call him one of the 8 great prodigies. Lu Yun thought to himself. After watching Lu Yun leave, Duan Lingtian's emotions from missing Ku, and their daughter had calmed down a lot. He also felt a certain amount of pressure from Dong Lin's father's protectiveness. After all, he would have to report to the enforcement hall tomorrow and hand over to the true disciple on duty in the enforcement hall to become the true disciple on duty in the enforcement hall for the next month. If Dong Lin's father wanted to look for trouble with him in the enforcement hall, just as Lu Yun had said, there was no need for him to do it himself. He could just ask the Silver Flame Elders to do it. The weakest Silver Flame Elder was at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage, while the strongest one was at the 4th form of the Saint Celestial stage. With my current strength, I won't be able to face a Silver Flame Elder at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. After all, I won't use the Jasper Celestial Sword unless I have the chance to kill him. Duan Lingtian knew this very well. For this reason, he had no choice but to be wary of Dong Lin's father. Forget it. My goal is to seek her and our daughter. As long as I can see them, so what if I have to suffer a little? Moreover, if he really dares to ask the Silver Flame Elder to teach me a lesson, I'll have to teach his son a lesson in full detail. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as his eyes flashed coldly. Chapter 2034. A day in the outside world was equivalent to 10 days in the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. During these 10 days, Duan Lingtian had also tried his best to calm himself down and cultivate. Although he did not make any breakthroughs in his cultivation base, he had managed to stabilize it. Give me half a month. I'll definitely be able to break through to the intermediate exemplary saint stage. Duan Lingtian, who was sitting cross-legged in the air in the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes gleamed brightly like 2 stars in the night sky. Naturally, the half-a-month Duan Lingtian was referring to was half a month in the outside world. It was equivalent to 5 months in the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Currently, with the help of his blue innate spiritual root and the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, Duan Lingtian's cultivation speed was almost comparable to a monstrous genius with an indigo innate spiritual root. Now, it's time for me to head to the enforcement hall. The moment Duan Lingtian thought to himself, he left the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and his mansion before he flew in the direction of the Saint Island. The enforcement hall was located on the Saint Island. Duan Lingtian knew about this. Duan Lingtian continued to head north. Soon after, he arrived at the area where the enforcement hall was located. It was rare for outsiders to come to this area. You're a true disciple who's on duty in our enforcement hall after accepting the position issued by our enforcement hall? As soon as Duan Lingtian entered the area where the enforcement hall was located, he heard a voice resonating from the sky. Then, a figure descended from the clouds and appeared in front of Duan Lingtian in just a blink of an eye. Duan Lingtian took a closer look and saw the person clearly. It was a middle-aged man dressed in the uniform of a St. Lan's Bronze Flame Elder. Unlike the uniform of an ordinary St. Lan's Bronze Flame Elder, the words Enforcement Hall were embroidered on the chest of his uniform. Based on this, one could tell he was an Enforcement Hall's elder.
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded in response to the Enforcement Hall's elder's question. Do you have proof? The Law Enforcement Hall's elder who appeared in front of Duan Lingtian asked straightforwardly. Any true disciple who came to the Law Enforcement Hall to serve would have a certificate issued by the Fire Remuneration Palace in the Central Square.
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded. Then, he took out the proof that he had obtained from the Fire Remuneration Palace yesterday and handed it to the Law Enforcement Hall's elder. The elder of the Law Enforcement Hall reached out and took it. His gaze then fell on the proof. Suddenly, as if he had seen something shocking, the pupils of the Law Enforcement Hall's elder suddenly shrank. His expression also changed at this moment. Hiss! Suddenly, the elder of the Law Enforcement Hall sucked in a breath of cold air. When he looked at Duan Lingtian again, there was a hint of respect in his eyes. You're Duan Lingtian? Although he was a St. Lan's Bronze Flame Elder and an Enforcement Hall's elder, his strength was only on par with Dong Lin. He was inferior to Wan Yin, who was ranked 9th on the true ranking. In the face of this person who could easily suppress Wan Yin and force Dong Lin, a spoiled brat, to apologize, apart from being shocked, there was only respect in his heart. Perhaps this person was much younger than him. However, it was precisely because this person was much stronger than him that he did not dare to take advantage of his seniority. After all, this was a world where the strong were respected, not the old. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded in response to the question from the Enforcement Hall's elder. You and the batch of true disciples on duty in our Law Enforcement Hall will be handed over in the main palace. I'll bring you there. When the Enforcement Hall's elder returned the proof to Duan Lingtian, he also took the initiative to bring Duan Lingtian to the main palace. Isn't it too troublesome? Why don't you just show me the way, elder? Duan Lingtian asked politely. Duan Lingtian had always been a person who would respect those who respected him tenfold. He was extremely courteous to the Enforcement Hall's elder. Although he was much stronger than the Enforcement Hall's elder with the Jasper Celestial Sword, he did not look down on the Enforcement Hall at all. "It's no trouble at all. It's my honor to be able to lead the way for a prodigy like you." The Enforcement Hall's elder shook his head. When Duan Lingtian saw how insistent the Enforcement Hall's elder was, he no longer refused and followed him to the Enforcement Hall's main palace. "How should I address you, elder?" Duan Lingtian asked along the way. "My name is Peng Bing." The Enforcement Hall's elder replied to Duan Lingtian immediately. "Then," he said anxiously, "you don't have to address me as elder. You can just call me by my name. Elder Peng Bing, you're a Zoroastrianism elder, and I'm a disciple of Zoroastrianism. It's only right for me to address you as elder, so you don't have to think too much about it." Duan Lingtian shook his head when he saw Peng Bing's anxiousness. After coming to Zoroastrianism for so long, this was his first time seeing an elder who was as courteous to him as Peng Bing. Peng Bing seemed to be anxious when he addressed Duan Lingtian as elder. However, Duan Lingtian was unaware that Duan Lingtian's elder was a Zoroastrianism elder. Currently, in the eyes of the Zoroastrianism's Bronze Flame Elders, Duan Lingtian was not someone to be trifled with. The Bronze Flame Elders were not only afraid of Duan Lingtian's strength, but they were also afraid of his courage. After all, not everyone had the guts to humiliate a direct disciple of a Golden Flame Elder in front of so many people. Moreover, not everyone had the guts to force the son of the Enforcement Hall's Vice Hall Master to apologize. Among the true disciples, Duan Lingtian was not the only one who was stronger than Wen Yin and Dong Lin. However, Duan Lingtian was the only one who dared to humiliate Wen Yin and Dong Lin. For this reason, in the eyes of the Zoroastrianism's Bronze Flame Elders, although Duan Lingtian was only a true disciple, he was an anomaly among the true disciples. He was someone they could not afford to offend. For this reason, Peng Bing was both respectful and fearful when he faced Duan Lingtian. "Elder Peng Bing, can you give me a brief introduction of the Enforcement Hall?" Duan Lingtian asked. "Of course." Peng Bing nodded immediately before he began to introduce the Enforcement Hall to Duan Lingtian. The Enforcement Hall is divided into 3 halls, and each of them has their own duties. The 3 halls are the Main Hall, the Punishment Hall, and the Prison Hall. The Main Hall. With Peng Bing's introduction, Duan Lingtian gained a basic understanding of the Enforcement Hall. The Enforcement Hall was divided into 3 halls: the Main Hall, the Punishment Hall, and the Prison Hall. From this, he found out that Kuer and her mother were imprisoned in the Prison Hall. "Elder Peng Bing, the Prison Hall is an important place in the Enforcement Hall. The people who usually guard there should be at least Silver Flame Elders, right?" Duan Lingtian asked. Although it seemed like he did not mean it, he actually meant it. At this moment, all he wanted to do was to find out more about the Prison Hall. If there were only some Bronze Flame Elders guarding the Prison Hall, perhaps he would have a chance to rescue Kerr and their daughter. Naturally, it was just a thought since even he thought it was unrealistic. There were so many Silver Flame Elders in the Enforcement Hall. How could they only let a group of Bronze Flame Elders guard the Prison Hall that was the most important place in the Enforcement Hall? "Yes." Peng Bing nodded immediately when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. "Usually, there are 3 Silver Flame Elders guarding the Prison Hall. You'll need their permission to enter the Prison Hall. If anything happens in the Prison Hall, they'll have a communication Dao talisman with them. They'll be able to inform the Hall Master and the Vice Hall Masters of the Enforcement Hall immediately." Peng Bing said, "If that's the case, doesn't that mean the Prison Hall is impregnable? It's impossible for anyone to rescue the people who are imprisoned there?" Duan Lingtian asked, seemingly surprised. In fact, Duan Lingtian was feeling a little gloomy at this moment. This meant that he would not be able to do anything. Before he had the ability to defeat the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, it was impossible for him to rescue Kerr and their daughter. "Indeed." Peng Bing nodded before he continued to say, "With the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall here, unless the person who comes is a guardian of Zoroastrianism, it's impossible for anyone to rescue them from the Prison Hall." When Peng Bing mentioned the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, a hint of respect could be seen in his eyes. To every Enforcement Hall Elder, The hall master of the enforcement hall was a supreme existence. His position in their hearts was second only to the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Even the three great guardians of Zoroastrianism were not as important as the hall master of the enforcement hall in their eyes. Peng Bin was talking to himself, but he didn't notice it. Duan Lingtian's face had turned completely gloomy. It was only when Peng Bin instinctively looked at Duan Lingtian that the gloomy expression on Duan Lingtian's face disappeared, and he regained his composure. The main palace of the enforcement hall is right in front of us. After walking for a while, Peng Bing's voice resonated in the air. Duan Lingtian immediately looked into the distance. In the distance, a huge and long palace sat there. It looked like a divine dragon that was crawling on the ground. It gave off an invisible pressure that came from the bottom of one's heart. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the sound of wind whistling rang in the air. When Duan Lingtian regained his senses, he immediately saw two figures flashing past him and entering the enforcement hall's main palace. Are they true disciples on duty as well? Although the two of them were very fast, Duan Lingtian could still clearly see the Saint Lan true disciples' uniform they were wearing. I have to go back to patrol as well, so I'll send you here. If we're free in the future, let's get together again. Peng Bing smiled and told Duan Lingtian that he was about to leave. Elder Peng Bing, thank you for leading the way. I, Duan Lingtian, will remember this favor. Duan Lingtian thanked Peng Bing. After Peng Bing left, he followed the two true disciples into the enforcement hall's main palace. I hope Kerr and her daughter are locked up with Ganru Yin. In that case, I'll have a chance to meet them. Duan Lingtian prayed in his heart when he stepped into the enforcement hall's main palace. Chapter 2035. When they entered the main hall of the enforcement hall, they saw a spacious hall. There was a row of counters in three directions in the hall, and a few elders of the enforcement hall were standing behind the counters. However, most of the counters were empty at the moment. There were only 3 people standing in front of one counter. Based on their attire, it was obvious they were the Saint Lan's disciples from the Zoroastrianism. However, they were standing next to the counter as though they were waiting for something. This person seems familiar. At the same time, one of the 2 true disciples who entered the main hall before Duan Lingtian turned around when he heard the sound of wind whistling behind him. With just a glance, he found Duan Lingtian familiar. However, he could not recall where he had seen Duan Lingtian before. When the other true disciple heard this, he turned around as well. As soon as he saw Duan Lingtian, he frowned for a moment before his brows relaxed. His eyes narrowed as well. This isn't Duan Lingtian? In the next moment, he could not help but exclaim in surprise. Duan Lingtian. Since the true disciple did not deliberately suppress his voice reverberated in the reception hall of the enforcement hall's main hall. Apart from causing his companion to perk up, his words also attracted the attention of the few elders of the enforcement hall behind the counter in the reception hall, and the 3 true disciples standing next to the counter in the distance. Duan Lingtian instantly became the center of attention in the reception hall. Duan Lingtian did not expect to be recognized as soon as he entered the hall. Faced with everyone's gaze, he smiled and nodded at them. His refined and courteous appearance caused everyone to be dumbfounded. Is he really Duan Lingtian? The 3 true disciples standing in the distance looked at each other. They could see the shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. One of them even asked, I think so. I've seen his portrait before. I really didn't expect that this Duan Lingtian, who offended Senior Sister Wen Yin for no reason and humiliated Senior Sister Wen Yin in public, would actually have such a side to him. I originally thought that he was an arrogant egomaniac, but I didn't expect that he would be so polite. Provoke Senior Sister Wen Yin for no reason? You believe that? I heard that Senior Sister Wen Yin doesn't even know how she offended this Duan Lingtian. Senior Sister Wen Yin must have offended Duan Lingtian in some way. In that matter, perhaps Senior Sister Wen Yin didn't link it to Duan Lingtian. So even Senior Sister Wen Yin herself doesn't know how she offended Duan Lingtian. The other 2 true disciples spoke one after another. In the face of Duan Lingtian's politeness, the 3 true disciples were not the only ones who were shocked. Even the few enforcement hall's bronze flame elders behind the counter and the two true disciples who were closest to Duan Lingtian were shocked. Is this really Duan Lingtian? Is this really Duan Lingtian? At this moment, they were just like the three true disciples. All of them were dumbfounded. Elder, this is my proof. Disregarding everyone's shock, Duan Lingtian walked up to the counter where the three true disciples were. He took out the proof the Fire Remuneration Palace's elder gave him yesterday and passed it to the Enforcement Hall's elder behind the counter. When the Enforcement Hall's elder saw it, he nodded. That's right. This proof was given by the Fire Remuneration Palace. Duan Lingtian, please wait at the side for a moment. When all 10 of you are here, someone will bring all of you to the other 10 true disciples. After the Enforcement Hall's elder put away the proof, he said to Duan Lingtian politely. When the three true disciples saw how Duan Lingtian was treated, they were envious. However, they knew this was the kind of treatment Duan Lingtian deserved. After all, Duan Lingtian was so powerful. All right, thank you for your trouble, elder. Duan Lingtian nodded and smiled at the Enforcement Hall's elder behind the counter before he stood at the side. When the three true disciples saw Duan Lingtian standing next to them, they did not dare to look at him or whisper to each other, even though they were curious about Duan Lingtian. Instead, they began to communicate through voice transmissions. At the same time, the other two true disciples also came to register. At this point, 6 out of the 10 true disciples who went to the Fire Remuneration Palace to accept the mission given by the Enforcement Hall had arrived. With the arrival of Duan Lingtian, the atmosphere in the reception hall of the Enforcement Hall's main hall became slightly oppressive. Nobody spoke, and nobody made a sound. This continued until the arrival of the 7th true disciple. However, when Duan Lingtian saw the 7th true disciple, he could not help but be stunned. This was because he knew this true disciple. Senior brother Lu Yun? You. Why are you here? Duan Lingtian asked in surprise when he saw the true disciple walking into the reception hall. How is it? Are you surprised? Lu Yun, who walked into the reception hall, seemed to enjoy Duan Lingtian's reaction. He could not help but smile. Yes, I'm very surprised. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. It's only a month anyway. I'll accompany you. Lu Yun said with a smile. When Duan Lingtian heard Lu Yun's words, a warm feeling rose in his heart. Naturally, he knew the purpose of Lu Yun's visit. It was none other than to keep an eye on him and prevent him from offending Elder Dong Lin of the Enforcement Hall. Apart from that, Lu Yun also wanted to help him meet Ganru Yin. Soon after, Lu Yun was done with the formalities. He stood next to Duan Lingtian and waited. At the same time, he asked curiously, Junior brother Lingtian, when did you arrive? I've been here for less than 15 minutes. Duan Lingtian replied, It seems like I'm late. Initially, I planned to come earlier so that you'd be the first to see me and be shocked. Lu Yun smiled. I'm just as shocked now. When Duan Lingtian heard Lu Yun's words, a bitter smile appeared on his face. When the other 5 true disciples saw how close Lu Yun and Duan Lingtian were, they looked at Lu Yun enviously and gloatingly. Naturally, they were envious of Lu Yun's close relationship with Duan Lingtian. After all, Duan Lingtian was publicly acknowledged as the 8th prodigy in Zoroastrianism. Apart from mastering 4 high-grade divine abilities, he also possessed a blue innate spiritual root. He was definitely a monstrous genius. As long as such a monstrous genius did not die prematurely, he would at least become a golden flame elder in Zoroastrianism. For this reason, they were envious when they saw how close Lu Yun was to a future golden flame elder. They gloated because they thought since Duan Lingtian had offended so many people, as his friend, Lu Yun would most likely be implicated as well. Put aside the fact that Duan Lingtian had offended the Black Turtle Sanctum's first silver flame elder, Lian. When he was in the Black Turtle Sanctum of the 4 symbol sanctums, he had also offended the true disciple, Wen Yin, and the Enforcement Hall's elder, Dong Lin, after he came to the Saint Land. Both of them might not be as strong as Duan Lingtian. However, their backgrounds were terrifyingly powerful. Take Wen Yin, for example. Her master was a golden flame elder in Zoroastrianism. He was also the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Dong Lin's background was even more terrifying. Dong Lin's father was the vice hall master of the enforcement hall that they were currently in. After offending Elder Dong Lin, he still dares to accept a mission from the enforcement hall to be on duty in the enforcement hall. Doesn't Duan Lingtian know what he's doing is akin to sending a lamb to the tiger's den? These were the thoughts of the other 5 true disciples and the enforcement hall's elders present on the scene. As time passed by, the last 3 true disciples finally arrived. When they saw Duan Lingtian, they were, naturally, shocked. Even if they had received news beforehand that Duan Lingtian would be on duty with them in the enforcement hall today, they would not be able to do anything. The 10 of you, come with me. After Duan Lingtian and the others arrived, in less than 10 breaths, an enforcement hall's elder walked out of the enforcement hall's main hall and beckoned to Duan Lingtian and the others to follow him. Based on the uniform the enforcement hall's elder was wearing, it was obvious he was also a Bronze Flame Elder. Under the lead of the Bronze Flame Elder, Duan Lingtian and the others met with the true disciples who had been on duty in the enforcement hall for the past month and completed the handover process with them. As for the handover process, it was nothing more than their original duties. When the 10 true disciples were about to leave the enforcement hall after the handover, they looked at Duan Lingtian with pity in their eyes. Many of them even shook their heads and sighed. Their thoughts were similar to the others. They all felt Duan Lingtian was akin to sending a lamb to the tiger's den to be on duty in the enforcement hall. It was apparent they had heard about the conflict between Duan Lingtian and Dong Lin. As true disciples on duty in the enforcement hall, it was only natural that they had their own residence. Each of them had their own independent and spacious room in the enforcement hall's main hall. Junior brother Lingtian will officially be on duty in the enforcement hall from tomorrow onward. Today is also the only day you'll have a chance to meet senior sister Ru Yen. Let's go. I'll bring you to meet the senior in our clan. As soon as Duan Lingtian entered the room, he heard Lu Yun's words before he could even close the door. All right. Upon hearing Lu Yun's words, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up immediately. At this moment, his eyes were like 2 dazzling stars in the night sky. Let's look for him at his residence first. If he's not there, we'll look for him at his post. After all, he's not like us. He has to be on duty. Lu Yun continued. Since the true disciples were only on duty in the enforcement hall for a month before they were dismissed, there was no such thing as being on duty or taking a break. It was fine if they were on duty or taking a break. Chapter 2036. One had to admit that Duan Lingtian was quite lucky. The elder in the clan whom Lu Yun had mentioned was not on duty. As soon as Lu Yun spoke, the elder in the clan, a middle-aged man with a cold expression, agreed to bring Duan Lingtian to the prison hall to see Gan Ru Yen. Thank you, Elder Lu Yu. Duan Lingtian quickly expressed his gratitude when he saw the middle-aged man had agreed to his request. Earlier, from Lu Yun's introduction, Duan Lingtian learned that the middle-aged man before him was called Lu Yu. Although he looked like a middle-aged man, he was actually from the same generation as Lu Yun's grandfather's grandfather. He was an old man through and through. As the most outstanding young man in the Lu clan, Lu Yun was highly valued and doted on by Lu Yu. For this reason, Lu Yu had agreed to Lu Yun's request to bring Duan Lingtian to the prison hall to see Gan Ru Yen. Naturally, it was only limited to meeting Gan Ru Yen. On the way here, Lu Yun had repeatedly warned Duan Lingtian not to mention the Saint girl and her daughter in front of Lu Yu. For this reason, Duan Lingtian had tried his best to conceal his excitement, afraid Lu Yu would notice. Little Yuner, I'll bring him to see Gan Ru Yen. You can go back and cultivate now. Try to break through to the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage as soon as possible. At that time, you'll be the 9th prodigy of Zoroastrianism. Lu Yu said to Lu Yun solemnly before he brought Duan Lingtian away. Based on his words, it was obvious he had high hopes for Lu Yun. It was as though a senior had high hopes for a junior. Yes, great-grandfather, Lu Yun replied respectfully. He glanced at Duan Lingtian helplessly before he left obediently. Duan Lingtian, follow me to the prison hall. Lu Yun looked at Duan Lingtian. When he greeted the Duan Lingtian, his eyes were filled with surprise. He had also heard about the Duan Lingtian's deeds. It was precisely because of this that Lu Yun, the most outstanding person in the younger generation of the Lu clan, was acquainted with such a person. It was difficult for him to distinguish whether it was a blessing or a curse. To be honest, If he did not have this layer of relationship with Lu Yun, it would be impossible for him to help the Duan Tian. In fact, he was even afraid that he would be related to the Duan Tian. Now that Lu Yun had spoken to his great-grandfather, he naturally had no reason not to help Duan Tian.
Yes.
Duan Tian followed behind Lu Yu, who was walking out of the main hall. After leaving the main palace, Lu Yu glanced at Duan Tian indifferently on the way to the prison hall and said calmly, Duan Tian, I can tell that little Yun values you as a friend. When Lu Yu reached the end of his sentence, he paused for a moment as though he was hesitating. Elder Lu Yu, feel free to speak your mind. Duan Tian smiled when he heard the hidden meaning in Lu Yu's words. I hope that you'll keep a distance from little Yuner in the future. In fact, you might even fall out with him in public. Lu Yu said again, Elder Lu Yu, are you worried that I'll implicate senior brother Lu Yun? Duan Tian was not stupid. Naturally, he could guess the meaning behind Lu Yu's words. Not only am I worried that you'll implicate little Yuner, but I'm even more worried that you'll implicate the Lu clan. Lu Yu said bluntly, forget about Li and whom you've offended in the four symbol sanctums. I'm not afraid of him. With me around, he won't be able to touch the Lu clan. However, the two people you've offended in the Saint Land have backgrounds that even I have to be wary of. The moment you've offended them, you've offended two Golden Flame Elders. If they vent their anger on the Lu clan because of you, even I can only watch helplessly. When Lu Yu reached the end of his sentence, a hint of dread could be seen in his eyes. Lu Yu was currently the strongest powerhouse in the Lu clan. However, even if he was the strongest powerhouse in the Lu clan, he was merely a silver flame elder in the Zoroastrianism. He could not afford to offend a golden flame elder at all. Upon hearing Lu Yu's words, Duan Tian fell silent for a moment. Previously, he had not thought about this at all. However, now that Lu Yu had reminded him, he could not help but break out in cold sweat. If Lu Yun was really implicated because of him, if the clan behind Lu Yun was really implicated because of him, he would never be able to forgive himself for the rest of his life. Elder Lu Yu, thank you for your reminder. After taking a deep breath, Duan Tian looked at Lu Yu and said with a serious expression, you don't have to worry. Within a month, I'll make everyone think that I've fallen out with senior brother Lu Yun and severed ties with him. Duan Tian, I'm grateful for your understanding. This shows that you're indeed a worthy friend. Xiao Yuner has a good eye. Lu Yu nodded his head in satisfaction before he continued to say, however, I know Xiao Yuner very well. I'm afraid he won't be willing to abandon a friend like you. Don't worry, Elder Lu Yu. I'll convince senior brother Lu Yun. Duan Tian said confidently. Upon hearing Duan Tian's words, Lu Yu immediately felt relieved. Subsequently, they did not speak for the rest of the journey. The prison hall in the enforcement hall was located in the northern area of the main hall. It was also the border of the enforcement hall's area. It was located at the northern side of the Saint Island. When they arrived at the prison hall, Duan Tian and Lu Yu were, naturally, stopped. Elder Lu Yu. The person who stopped them was a bronze flame elder from the enforcement hall. He was very respectful when he spoke to Lu Yu. Bring me to Elder Ming Qi and the others. Lu Yu said nonchalantly, yes. Following that, under the guidance of the bronze flame elder from the enforcement hall, Duan Tian followed Lu Yu to meet the three silver flame elders who were currently on duty at the prison hall. The silver flame elders from the enforcement hall knew each other. Coincidentally, the three silver flame elders who were currently on duty at the prison hall had a good relationship with Lu Yu. For this reason, the three silver flame elders agreed to Lu Yu's request to let Duan Tian meet Ganru Yin. However, there was a time limit. It had only been 15 minutes since Duan Tian met Ganru Yin. Although 15 minutes was a short time, Duan Tian did not bargain. This was because he knew that he was only able to meet Ganru Yin because of Lu Yu. He did not have the right to bargain at all. In that case, I'll have to trouble the three of you. Lu Yu cupped his fist and thanked the three silver flame elders who were currently on duty at the prison hall. Soon after, Duan Tian was led into the prison hall by one of the silver flame elders, Ming Qi. After Duan Tian was brought into the prison hall, the other two silver flame elders looked at Lu Yu in surprise and asked, Lu Yu, what's your relationship with Duan Tian? Why are you willing to help him? That's right. What's your relationship with him? Since Duan Lingtian's portrait had spread throughout the entire Zoroastrianism, the two Silver Flame Elders recognized Duan Lingtian the moment they saw him. As for Duan Lingtian's past deeds, they had also heard about it. It's nothing. He just knows one of my juniors, and that junior asked me to help him. Lu Yu smiled faintly. Lu Yu, this Duan Lingtian is a hot potato. You better tell your junior to stay away from him. That's right. He's even offended Dong Lin now. Dong Lin is the lifeblood of our enforcement hall's Vice Hall Master Dong. Now that Duan Lingtian has touched his lifeblood, there's no way he'll let this go so easily. The two Silver Flame Elders had a good relationship with Lu Yu. Hence, they immediately reminded Lu Yu. I understand. Lu Yu nodded. If he did not understand, he would not have said those words to Duan Lingtian. However, when he recalled that Duan Lingtian had already promised him, he was relieved. On the other side, Duan Lingtian entered the prison hall under the lead of Silver Flame Elder Meng Qi. As soon as Duan Lingtian entered the prison hall, he could feel a cold aura surging toward him. He could not help but shudder. It was as though the environment in the depths of the prison hall was similar to an ice mountain and snow valley. Duan Lingtian, I'm curious. Are you related to the dragons? Meng Qi, who had been silent all this while, suddenly asked. Elder Meng Qi, I obtained the 9-clawed divine dragon's inheritance by chance and obtained the ability to transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. I've never met any dragons before. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. With your innate talent and your identity as a 9-clawed dragon warrior, you'll definitely be heavily nurtured if you go to the dragons. Meng Qi's eyes gleamed as he continued to say, although I don't know your relationship with Lu Yu, since he's willing to help you meet Ganru Yin, I can tell that you have a good relationship with him. Since we've been friends for so many years, I advise you to leave Zoroastrianism as soon as possible. Our enforcement hall's Vice Hall Master Dong is not someone to be trifled with. A hint of dread flashed in Meng Qi's eyes when he mentioned Vice Hall Master Dong. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Meng Qi. Duan Lingtian knew Meng Qi meant well, so he quickly thanked him. However, he did not intend to accept Meng Qi's suggestion. He only had one goal in mind when he came to Zoroastrianism. It was to rescue Kerr and their daughter. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not leave Zoroastrianism before rescuing Kerr and their daughter. Meng Qi seemed to have noticed Duan Lingtian's waning interest, so he did not say anything else. He continued to remain silent for the rest of the journey. The deeper they went into the prison hall, the more they could feel the cold air coming from within. Elder Meng Qi, is it always so cold in the prison hall? Duan Lingtian seemed to have thought of something as his expression turned completely serious. He looked at Meng Qi and asked. There was a hint of anxiety in the depths of his eyes. The place of imprisonment inside is much colder than here. Meng Qi replied. Colder than here? Duan Lingtian's pupils shrank. The first thing he thought of was his and Kerr's daughter. With Kerr's cultivation, she might be able to withstand the environment here. But what about their daughter? How old was she? Why would she be imprisoned in such an environment? Chapter 2037. Although Duan Lingtian had yet to see his daughter, it did not change the fact that blood was thicker than water between them. When Duan Lingtian thought about how his daughter was being tortured in the prison hall, he felt extremely sad. I'm useless. It's all my fault. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's heart was filled with self-reproach. He was thinking about how he would make it up to his daughter after he rescued her, so that he could make up for what he owed her. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses. Elder Meng Qi, ever since we entered the prison hall, I haven't seen anyone guarding it. Aren't you worried that someone might kidnap the prisoners? Duan Lingtian asked as he looked at Meng Qi with a gleam in his eyes. Ever since Duan Lingtian entered the prison hall, he did not see a third living person other than himself and Meng Qi. No, let alone a living person. He did not even see a dead person. He wanted to see if there were any loopholes in the prison hall that would allow him to rescue Kerr and their daughter as soon as possible. He did not want Kerr and their daughter to stay here for even a second longer. Kidnap prisoners? Meng Qi could not help but laugh when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Duan Lingtian, You've really underestimated the prison hall of the enforcement hall. The prison hall has been in existence ever since Zoroastrianism moved to the upper province from the lower province. The prison hall is filled with formations that are filled with killing intent. Those below the Saint Celestial stage who are unfamiliar with these formations will definitely die if they trespass. Even those below the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage would be severely injured if they don't die. Even those at the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage would be in a wretched state if they were to trigger the formations. Unless someone at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage or above breaks into the prison hall to rescue the prisoners, they won't be able to take the prisoners away. Meng Qi's words also revealed how terrifying the prison hall was. There were killing formations everywhere in the prison hall. Once triggered, even those at the peak of the quintessential saint stage would definitely die. I see. When Duan Lingtian heard this, he couldn't help but inwardly inhale a breath of cold air. At the same time, he dispelled the idea of trespassing into the prison hall and taking away Kerr and her daughter. One had to know. Even with the help of the Jasper Celestial Sword, he would have to exhaust all of his Sun Saint energy that had been raised by the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, before he could kill a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage. The most powerful attack he could cast with the Jasper Celestial Sword was only comparable to the attack of a powerhouse at the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage. Even if he could withstand the first wave of attacks from the killing array and not die, when the second wave arrived, he would still die without a doubt. Duan Lingtian was well aware of his current strength. Strength. The current me is still too weak. My current cultivation speed is still too slow. Duan Lingtian thought to himself, if I can devour other people's innate spiritual roots and upgrade my innate spiritual root to a violet one, my cultivation speed will increase exponentially. Even if you encounter a bottleneck, you can forcefully break through it in a very short time. Duan Lingtian's eyes shone brightly when he thought of this. It seems like it's time for me to leave Zoroastrianism and upgrade my innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian knew very well. In Zoroastrianism, due to the sect's rules, it would be difficult for him to kill someone and take their innate spiritual root even if he had a conflict with them. After all, not everyone was willing to enter the Palace of Death and sign a death pact with him. For example, Wen Yin, who was ranked 9th on the true ranking. Although Wen Yin wanted to tear him into pieces, she did not dare to enter the Palace of Death with him. Naturally, even if he entered the Palace of Death, it would not be convenient for him to devour the innate spiritual roots of those he killed, since the Overseer of the Palace of Death would be watching him. The Overseer of the Palace of Death was the first Silver Flame Elder of Zoroastrianism. His eyesight was extremely good. Even if Duan Lingtian cast his 10,000 swords territory, he would not be able to block the Overseer's sight. At that time, the Overseer would most likely be able to see through his method of devouring innate spiritual roots. Duan Lingtian's method of devouring innate spiritual roots was completely dependent on his divine power, the elementary devouring skill. However, who could guarantee that once this matter was exposed, Zoroastrianism would not imprison him and force him to share the elementary devouring skill with him? Duan Lingtian would only be able to share a divine power after he had comprehended it to the highest level. However, Zoroastrianism could imprison him now and force him to share the divine power after he had comprehended the elementary devouring skill to the highest level. Imprison him was the best way to keep him here. Therefore, Duan Lingtian did not dare to take the risk. If he was imprisoned by Zoroastrianism like a lab rat, he would not be able to save Kerr and her daughter. He would not even be able to save himself. Don't be fooled by the fact that we did not trigger any killing formations along the way. That's because I'm familiar with the killing formations here. I know where to go without triggering any killing formations. You should have noticed that I've been taking detours along the way, Duan Lingtian said. Duan Lingtian nodded. Of course, he had noticed this. Moreover, he had also memorized the route Duan Lingtian took. However, the killing formations here change every once in a while. That's because the formation changes itself. Therefore, it might not be the same the next time we come here, Ming Qi said. He continued to explain. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Duan Lingtian was still guessing that the killing formations in the prison hall might change. Now that he heard Duan Lingtian's words, his guess was confirmed. Duan Lingtian realized that the route he had memorized would not be useful in the future. Therefore, he decided not to think about it anymore. It seems like I have to find an opportunity to leave Zoroastrianism without alarming the two of them. If I continue to stay in Zoroastrianism, it will be difficult for me to improve my innate spiritual roots. Duan Lingtian quickly made up his mind. He would leave Zoroastrianism. He would go out and improve his innate spiritual roots. The two people he was referring to were naturally the first Silver Flame Elder Lian from the Black Turtle Sanctum, one of the four symbol sanctums, and Vice Hall Master Dong from the Law Enforcement Hall, who was also Dong Lin's father. If he left and was targeted by the two of them, he would be killed as soon as he left Zoroastrianism. I'll leave Zoroastrianism after serving in the Law Enforcement Hall for a month. However, before that, I have to think of a way to get out safely. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If he wanted to leave Zoroastrianism, he had to come up with a foolproof plan. Otherwise, he would die if he was not careful. If he died, Kerr and her mother would no longer have any hope. If that was the case, he would not be satisfied even if he died. The prison where Ganru Yin is being held is just ahead. I'll wait for you at the entrance. You only have 15 minutes. Suddenly, Meng Qi's voice sounded. He told Duan Lingtian that they were about to arrive at their destination. Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat. Were Kerr and her mother imprisoned together with Ganru Yin? This was what he was most concerned about. If they were not imprisoned together, he would only be able to see Ganru Yin. However, if they were imprisoned together, he would be able to reunite with Kerr and her mother. Soon, Duan Lingtian arrived in front of a stone chamber under Meng Qi's lead. This is where Ganru Yin is being held. I'll open the door now, and you can enter. Remember, you only have 15 minutes. Meng Qi reminded Duan Lingtian again as he looked at him. Understood. Duan Lingtian nodded. Then, Duan Lingtian saw Meng Qi raising his hands and making complicated hand signs. As Meng Qi's hands moved, the air in the void seemed to be under his control. All of a sudden, bang! Meng Qi struck out a palm in the air. This palm strike did not contain any Saint Vital energy. It was just a palm strike. However, Duan Lingtian saw it clearly. As Meng Qi struck out with his palm, the air in the void seemed to be squeezed together and then hit the door of the stone chamber. Immediately, the outer layer of the stone room's door also emitted circles of ripples. In the end, the ripples spread out to the extreme, and a huge opening appeared, revealing the door of the stone room completely. A formation? Duan Lingtian immediately realized that there was a formation outside the stone chamber. Meng Qi's action just now was to open the formation. After the formation was opened, Meng Qi easily pushed open the stone door and looked at Duan Lingtian. Go in. Duan Lingtian nodded and stepped into the stone chamber. Boom! Just as Duan Lingtian entered the stone chamber, and before he could see what was inside, there was a loud bang behind him. The stone door was closed again by Meng Qi. He's really careful. Duan Lingtian shook his head inwardly and began to look at the stone chamber in front of him as well. The stone chamber was not very spacious. It was about the size of 2 rooms in the mansion he was living in now. The interior was very simple. Other than a stone table and a few stone stools around it, there was only a stone bed. Now, there was a woman sitting cross-legged on the stone bed. After he entered, the woman opened her eyes. Her eyes flashed as she stared at him. Kerr. Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat when he saw the woman's face. He was stunned for a moment. However, when he met the woman's gaze, Duan Lingtian's face changed drastically. This was because he saw it. The woman in front of him who looked exactly like Kerr was not Kerr, but Ganru Yin. This woman was the only one imprisoned in this stone chamber. Who are you? Why are you here? Just as Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically, Ganru Yin left the stone bed vigilantly and stared sharply at Duan Lingtian. She asked in a questioning tone, You're still the same as before. You haven't changed at all. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian said flatly, Chapter 2038. You're still the same as before. You haven't changed at all. Duan Lingtian's words were like the first words spoken to an old friend after a long separation. Duan Lingtian said this because the Ganru Yin before him was just like the Qi Mei from before. She was domineering and unapproachable. Who are you? Do you know me? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Ganru Yin could not help but frown slightly. At the same time, she studied Duan Lingtian carefully. However, she realized she had never seen this young man before. Qimei, it's been a long time. Duan Lingtian spoke again. He mentioned the alias Ganru Yin used when she was in the WCI subterranean. It was also the alias Ganru Yin used when she was an assassin in the Mountain Shade Black Market. Qimei. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's nickname, Ganru Yin's eyes widened in shock. At the same time, Ganru Yin began to recall the days she spent in the WCI subterranean a few years ago. She tried to recall who knew her identity. However, no matter how hard she thought about it, it seemed like the only people who knew Qi Mei was Ganru Yin was her sister and those who were related to her sister in the lower province. Naturally, those people in the lower province did not know Qi Mei was Ganru Yin. As for the people in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland, including the people from the Zoroastrianism and her family, the Gan clan, none of them knew her alias, Qi Mei, when she was in the WCI subterranean. Even her master, Guardian Xinghua from the Zoroastrianism, did not know her alias when she was in the WCI subterranean. Who are you? Ganru Yin couldn't think of anyone else who knew that she was Qi Mei. She couldn't help but become vigilant. She stared at Duan Lingtian with a serious gaze, as if she was facing a great enemy. Who am I? When he heard Ganru Yin's words, the indifference on Duan Lingtian's face disappeared without a trace. He then sneered, I was separated from my family because of you. Ganru Yin, it's only been a few years. Have you already forgotten about me? Did you get the wrong person? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Ganru Yin was stunned for a moment before asking with a frown, Wrong person? How can you, Ganru Yin, say something like that? The sneer on Duan Lingtian's face deepened. As Duan Lingtian's sneer deepened, his face that Ganru Yin could not see through began to distort. His originally handsome face was no longer there. It was replaced by another handsome face. This face had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, a high nose, and perfect lips. His perfect facial features gave people a very comfortable feeling, and people couldn't help but praise him in their hearts. What a handsome young man. It's you. If Ganru Yin did not recognize the young man's face earlier, Ganru Yin would never forget this face for the rest of her life. This was because this man was the man she hated the most. If it was not for this man, her sister would not have violated the rules of Zoroastrianism and faced a life and death crisis. At that time, when her sister was taken away by the enforcement hall, she even regretted not killing this man who had harmed her sister. At this moment, Ganru Yin felt as though she had seen a ghost when she saw this man again in this place. Why is he here? How did he get in? Is this really the prison hall where the Zoroastrianism enforcement hall is heavily guarded? At this moment, Ganru Yin's heart was filled with questions. What? You can recognize me now? Duan Lingtian could not help but sneer when he saw the shock on Ganru Yin's face when she saw his face. How did you get in? At the same time, Ganru Yin tried her best to calm down. After a while, she looked at Duan Lingtian and asked in a deep voice, I have my own way of getting in. The sneer on Duan Lingtian's face gradually disappeared as he replied indifferently. Do you know that I can't wait to kill you? Are you seeking your own death by coming here? Ganru Yin said in a deep voice. You can't wait to kill me? Duan Lingtian could not help but laugh when he heard Ganru Yin's words. His eyes turned cold as he said coldly, Ganru Yin, I should be the one saying this to you, right? Don't tell me that until now, you still think that bringing Ku Er back was the right choice? If you didn't bring Kerr back, would she have fallen into such a dangerous situation? You should be glad you didn't hand Kerr over to the Saintland Enforcement Hall. Otherwise, you'd have died. Duan Lingtian's tone turned colder when he reached the end of his sentence. It was as though he had fallen into an ice cave. I'd have died? Ganru Yin was stunned when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. She could not help but laugh disdainfully. You? She, Ganru Yin, was ranked 7th on the true ranking of Zoroastrianism. She was one of the 7 great prodigies of Zoroastrianism. She had already entered the supreme saint ranking at such a young age. In fact, only the strongest 1,000 people in the Tao Martial Saintland were qualified to enter the supreme saint ranking. Today, the young man whom she had regarded as an ant a few years ago had appeared before her. Although she did not know how he came to be here, she still found it ridiculous. How could his strength have improved so much in just a few years? That's right. Me. Duan Lingtian replied decisively in the face of Gan Ruyan's disdain. As soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, the sun saint energy that he had been accumulating in his body surged out. He instantly cast the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, and devoured the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surroundings to strengthen the sun saint energy in his body. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, the sound of a sword whistling in the air rang in the air. Crack! Before Gan Ruyan could react, the long hairpin on Gan Ruyan's head broke. Crash! After Gan Ruyan's hairpin broke, her long black hair fell to the ground. She cut a sorry figure. What do you think now? Before Gan Ruyan could see the traces of the Jasper Celestial Sword, Duan Lingtian, who had put the Jasper Celestial Sword away, glanced at Gan Ruyan coldly and asked indifferently. Currently, Duan Lingtian had lost most of his Sun Saint energy. He was powerless. If Gan Ruyan made a move on him now, he would not be able to resist at all. Naturally, since Duan Lingtian dared to expend so much Sun Saint energy, he was certain Gan Ruyan would not make a move on him. After all, if he really wanted to kill Gan Ruyan, it would be very easy for him to do so. He believed that Gan Ruyan could sense it as well. Naturally, Gan Ruyan could sense it as well. How is this possible? Almost at the moment when Duan Lingtian broke Gan Ruyan's hairpin, Gan Ruyan's heart was filled with endless fear. She felt that she was so close to death at that moment. If the target of his sword was not her hairpin but a vital part of her body, she would definitely die. How can he be so strong? Gan Ruyan secretly gasped. When she looked at Duan Lingtian again, she could not help but feel shocked. She felt that the young man in front of her was completely different from the Duan Lingtian she had met before. That Duan Lingtian was so weak that he could not even withstand a single blow from her. She could even suppress him with just a flick of her finger. However, the Duan Lingtian in front of her was far stronger than her. From the beginning until the end, she did not see any trace of the sword at all. Even when she sparred with the true disciple who was ranked first on the true ranking of Zoroastrianism, she did not feel such despair and suffocation from the beginning until the end. At that moment, she even felt that her life was out of her control. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Who are you? It was precisely because of this that Gan Ruyan questioned Duan Lingtian's identity again. This was because she did not dare to associate this young man who could kill her with a single sword strike with the man who had harmed her sister. What? Do you think it's impossible for me to possess strength that far surpasses yours in just a few years? Duan Lingtian sneered. It was not difficult for him to guess Gan Ruyan's thoughts at this moment. In fact, let alone Gan Ruyan, even he felt like he was dreaming. Back then, Gan Ruyan had appeared as Chi Mei and forcefully took her away. At that time, Gan Ruyan's strength suffocated him. He could only watch as she took her away. He would never forget that scene. At that moment, he felt extremely powerless when he faced Gan Ruyan. After so many years, when he saw Gan Ruyan again, he could even kill Gan Ruyan with just a single sword strike with the Jasper Celestial Sword. This feeling made him feel proud, but at the same time, he felt unrealistic. The difference was too great. It was precisely because of this that he could understand Gan Ruyan's feelings at this moment. A person whom she regarded as an ant a few years ago had the strength to kill her with just a single sword strike. As long as she was a normal person, she would not be able to accept this. It's impossible for you to be him, let alone a few years. Even if he's given a few decades or a few centuries, he might not necessarily have your strength. Tell me, who are you? What does this have to do with him? Why are you impersonating him? Are you trying to stand up for him and humiliate me? Gan Ruyan's expression turned even more unsightly. However, she still could not believe the Duan Lingtian in front of her was the Duan Lingtian she had come into contact with in the past. It doesn't matter to me whether you believe me or not. The reason I'm here today is not because I want to see you, but because I want to see Ku and our daughter, Duan Lingtian said indifferently. At the same time, he bluntly revealed his purpose of entering the prison hall. He wanted to seek her and their daughter. Gan Ruyin frowned when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. She asked hesitantly, "What's wrong?" Chapter 2039. It's the truth. Duan Lingtian replied coldly and decisively in the face of Gan Ruyan's repeated questions. His cold voice resonated in the air. At the same time, it seemed as though the temperature in the surroundings had dropped a few degrees. Gan Ruyin still found it hard to believe when she heard Duan Lingtian's resolute reply. However, she found a sense of déjà vu in the young man's eyes. Previously, when she brought her sister away from the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the gaze of the young man who had blocked her way was no different from the gaze of the young man in front of her. In her mind, the two of them overlapped. It did not seem out of place at all. How's it possible that you're so strong? Gan Ruyin gasped. Although she still found it hard to believe, she knew she had no choice but to believe it even if she did not want to. This was because Duan Lingtian was standing in front of her. Moreover, his strength had already surpassed hers. You don't have to worry about how I'm so strong. I've already said that I'm here to seek her and her daughter, not you. Where are they now? Duan Lingtian asked in a timely manner. Since you're not here to see me, why don't you just go and see them? Gan Ruyin asked. At this moment, even Gan Ruyin did not notice that when she spoke to Duan Lingtian again, her tone had softened a little. She was no longer as domineering as before. It was as though she was awed by the strength Duan Lingtian had displayed. Perhaps she was touched by the fact that Duan Lingtian had come all the way to the Zoroastrianism to look for her sister. However, one thing was certain. Gan Ruyin, who originally hated Duan Lingtian to the core, suddenly had a thought that Duan Lingtian was indeed worthy of her sister. In fact, in the past, she only thought Duan Lingtian was a toad. She did not think Duan Lingtian was worthy of her sister at all. However, after witnessing Duan Lingtian's strength, her attitude had unknowingly changed. Even she did not notice the change. Do you think the enforcement hall's elder will let me seek her and her daughter if I say so? Duan Lingtian sneered. Upon hearing this, Gan Ruyin finally understood. Her sister was different from her. Her sister had committed a taboo in the Zoroastrianism. She was a very sensitive person in the Zoroastrianism. Let alone Duan Lingtian. Even the Golden Flame elders in the Zoroastrianism might not be able to see her sister even if they wanted to. From the beginning, they weren't locked up with me. Gan Ruyin sighed and said, "When I brought Yu Yen back, I hid her in my mansion until she gave birth to your daughter." Gan Ruyin paused for a moment when she reached the end of her sentence. Yu Yen? Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow when he realized the Yu Yen Gan Ruyin mentioned was Ker's other name. Yu Yen named your daughter Duan Siling, Duan Siling said. Gan Ruyin said as she looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Siling. It was Gan Ruyan's words that caught Duan Lingtian off guard. His heart skipped a beat as though something had touched him. Duan Yintian was the name little Fei had given to their son. Duan Siling was the name Ker had given to their daughter. Although the names were different, they had the same meaning. She missed him, Duan Lingtian. Since you're able to find your way here, it means that you've heard about what happened after that. I've kept Yu Yan's matter a secret from almost everyone. However, in the end, Wen Yin discovered some clues and reported me to the enforcement hall. Gan Ruyan's eyes flashed coldly when she mentioned Wen Yin. If it were not for Wen Yin, her sister would not have been locked up by the enforcement hall. Due to Wen Yan's report, Yu Yen and our daughter were taken away by the enforcement hall. As for me, I went to look for my master, Guardian Xinghua, one of the 3 great guardians of Zoroastrianism. Initially, I wanted to ask for Master's help, but Master said I was foolish and told me to go to the enforcement hall. Gan Ruyin sighed when she reached the end of her sentence. I know Master is doing this for my own good. When Lord Sect Leader comes out of his closed-door cultivation in the future and finds out about this matter, he might let me off for his sake. However, Master said there's nothing he can do about Yu Yen. He can only leave it to Lord Sect Leader to make a decision. Gonru Yan's expression turned solemn. A hint of worry could be seen in her eyes when she reached the end of her sentence. Make a decision? What's there to make a decision about? Duan Lingtian sneered when he heard Gonru Yan's words. Put aside the fact that Kerr didn't want to end up in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. What does her life have to do with Zoroastrianism? She fell in love with me and had children with me. What does that have to do with Zoroastrianism? What right does Zoroastrianism have to decide her life? What right does it have to decide her life and death? Duan Lingtian's cold voice trembled slightly when he reached the end of his sentence. It was obvious he was furious. It was as though the anger he had been suppressing in his heart all this time had exploded all at once. I know you're unwilling to accept this, but do you think I'm willing to accept this as well? Gonru Yin smiled wryly. Didn't you ask me if I still think bringing Yu Yin back to Zoroastrianism was the right choice? Let me tell you, I still think it was the right choice. This was because as long as Yu Yin was in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the people sent by Zoroastrianism would be able to find her sooner or later. However, I didn't expect that even after I found her, brought her back and hid her away, she was still found out in the end. When Gonru Yin reached the end of her sentence, the killing intent in her eyes shone again. Her killing intent was clearly directed at Wen Yin as well. After venting his anger, Duan Lingtian calmed down a lot. Based on Gonru Yan's words, he could sense that Gonru Yin was genuinely concerned about Kerr. Perhaps, the way she was concerned was not what he wanted, but she had good intentions. I really don't know what you're thinking. You actually brought Kerr back to Zoroastrianism and walked right into the trap. Couldn't you have found a place for her to stay outside? However, Duan Lingtian could not help but mock Gonru Yin for her foolish act of bringing Kerr back to Zoroastrianism. Find a place for her to stay outside? Do you think I'll be at ease? Gonru Yin said in a deep voice, She's my biological sister, my long-lost biological sister. Even if I can't see her for half a day, I'll still be worried about her safety. Moreover, in my opinion, the most dangerous place is also the safest place. However, no matter how I thought about it, I didn't expect Wen Yin to be hiding in the dark and watching me. She even discovered Yu Yin, who I brought back. When Gonru Yin mentioned Wen Yin again, the killing intent in her eyes became even more intense. Duan Lingtian no longer blamed her when he sensed Gonru Yan's genuine sorrow. Instead, he changed the topic and asked, Do you know where Kerr and our daughter are being held? I don't know. Gonru Yin shook her head. The prison hall is huge, and there are many stone cells. Yu Yin and our daughter should be in one of the stone cells. Don't worry, before the sect leader of Zoroastrianism comes out of his closed-door cultivation, the enforcement hall won't touch her at all. However, if the sect leader comes out of his closed-door cultivation, I'm afraid Yu Yin and our daughter would. When Gonru Yin reached this part of her sentence, a hint of regret and pity could be seen in her eyes. If I had a choice, I'd rather not bring her out of the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, even though I think it was a wrong decision. However, if I did that, even if she was brought back by the Zoroastrianism, at least the mother and daughter would be able to spend more time with you. Right now, it's not certain if the mother and daughter would be able to reunite with you or not. Tears rolled down Gonru Yan's cheeks. Based on her words, it was as though she did not think her sister would survive. We'll definitely be able to reunite, Duan Lingtian said resolutely. I'll definitely rescue Kerr and our daughter before the sect leader of Zoroastrianism comes out of his closed-door cultivation. If something happens to Kerr and their daughter because of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, in the future, not only will I tear him into pieces, but I'll also destroy the foundation of Zoroastrianism with my own hands. I'll make Zoroastrianism disappear from the Dao Martial Saint Land forever and become a part of the Dao Martial Saint Land's history. When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, his tone was extremely cold, as though it came from an ice cave. It sent chills down one's spine when they heard it. If it was before, Gonru Yin would think Duan Lingtian had overestimated himself when Duan Lingtian said this. However, after witnessing the transformation of Duan Lingtian's strength in just a few years, she no longer doubted Duan Lingtian's words. Duan Lingtian had the potential. Perhaps, once your innate talent is exposed, Even the sect leader won't dare to make a move on you, Yin. However, the prerequisite is that you must show the potential that the entire Zoroastrianism is afraid of. Ganru Yin said excitedly when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. Naturally, the prerequisite is that you can't continue to stay in Zoroastrianism and prevent the Zoroastrianism from finding you. Otherwise, the sect leader won't have anything to fear as long as you're killed in the cradle. Ganru Yin finished her sentence in one breath. Ganru Yan's words reminded Duan Lingtian that he was even more determined to show his potential in Zoroastrianism. It seems like I should leave Zoroastrianism as soon as I leave the enforcement hall. As long as I return after raising my innate spiritual root to a violet innate spiritual root, I'll definitely shock the entire Zoroastrianism in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint Land. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he made up his mind. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.